What is going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here at Dean7904. If you want to get all technical on me, that is the handle in the DFS streets. It's 10:10 on the East Coast, 7:10 on the West Coast, 9:10 Tennessee time. Of course, images time for the flagship show here at Rotogrinders. It's called Grinderslive. The start of 3 hours here at Rotogrinders, taking you guys all the way up to kickoff. Following us, of course, is going to be Tambo, as always, to be showing off the fabulous RG tools here, taking behind the curtain to some degree, messing with the old lineup HQ tool. Joining us will be Head Chopper. Well, we'll be gone, but Head Chopper will be here. Two-time millionaire Head Chopper, and they'll be taking you guys all up the lock as well, too. So that said, we're going to bring in, hey, it's somebody new, somebody I haven't worked with before. Definitely read his article earlier this week, or actually just last night on RG. Senior analyst there at Fantasy Points. It's Wes Huber. What's going on, Wes? Good morning. How are things in your world?
I'm doing great, man. And I'm glad. Thanks for having me on the show, and looking forward to get into some football here. Yeah.
So the NFL advanced matchup column, I guess you come at it from a little different perspective. It's good to get a different perspective, especially this time of year where a lot of it gets sort of monotonous and hear voices sounding similar. So I'm happy to talk to you. I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to say. And I guess, is it fair to say you have a film dedicated analysis? Is that correct? Is that a correct way? Or feel free to correct me.
Yeah, it's true. And I try to look at it from a perspective of where I came into fantasy. I spent 7 years at PFF, and just looking at the game a little bit differently. It was outside of the fantasy realm, and just looking at it from an analytical perspective and how we could help teams directly. And I tried to mold myself into that point of view. And then now that I'm taking a step back and into fantasy, which I've done for over 30 years personally. Trying to merge the two and see what we can do to bring in some of the underlying perspectives from actual football into the fantasy realm.
Yeah, do urge you guys, if you're RG Premium members out there, check out his NFL Advanced Matchup Column article with film analysis. That's kind of as a focus there, and you're diving into like cover 2 and cover 3 and cover 4. And like, I'm not a film nut. I played Madden. I played my share of Madden, and I know kind of sort of some what's going on there. But it's super interesting. And hey, if you guys don't have RG Premium, you can get yourself 1 month. The first month you can get $10 off, and you can do that a la carte, like one sport. I just want to focus on basketball. Basketball just started, obviously. It's going to be an awesome season. Or you can get everything, every single sport, $10 off there as well. Everything with the exception of NASCAR. I believe every other sport, MMA, soccer, esports, football's winding down, baseball when it comes back, obviously. The link will be dropped in chat. What's up, YouTube? Feel free to like and subscribe. We do appreciate that. Keep the lights on. We don't want to grovel. We don't want to beg, but we do appreciate those likes. All right, Wes. Is this a lipstick on a pig kind of slate? It's not a good slate, right? A lot of the good teams have already played or are playing later. We have a monster total tonight, I guess, in that Green Bay, Tennessee game. There's going to be some weather to some degree, but it still is a total like 53, 54. But 10-gamer tonight, obviously pretty thin. Some injuries as well. We have one team, the Kansas City Chiefs, that's super stand out amongst everybody else. It's a massive team total. It's a massive total in that game, mostly because they're the Chiefs and also because they're playing that Atlanta defense. What's your general overall thought before we kind of dive in and break it down position by position? Your general overall thought, how are you attacking this slate? Because, it seems a little bit thin to me.
It is thin. And I think with so many of the top players like Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, now that he's playing, and then you also want to get into Montgomery and Eckler. You really need to find some values in GPPs. I mean, you could try to thin it out with some medium salaries for your cash or single entry lineups. But yeah, for your GPPs, you really want to find those values because maybe if you want some Kelsey, you're going to need to find that quarterback that's going to allow that to take place. Then Ridley's going to go off. With Atlanta, they're going to be forced to air it out to keep up with KC. So it's a tough card for sure.
All right, yeah, just a 10-game slate. 11 are playing on Yahoo for what it's worth. They do grab that Green Bay, Tennessee game. Ownership feels like it's going to be fairly condensed. I'm pulling up the ownership stuff right now as far as the quarterbacks, and we're seeing the projected ownership. Jamino and his team obviously are all over this, and the closer we get to lock, the more refined this gets. But as of right now, we're seeing Mahomes at about 17% on DK. Jalen Hurts, who's just been absolute gangbusters the last two, or his first two games he's ever played, at least started. He's been phenomenal. There's no reason to suspect it'll slow down here against Dallas. Nice matchup. And those guys are basically getting about a third of the ownership, out of 20 quarterbacks, they're getting a third of the ownership. How justified is that for you? And do you have a lean as far as Mahomes versus Hurts? Obviously, Mahomes a little bit more expensive, but he should throw. It feels like 303 is just on layaway here. Mahomes versus Hurts. Speak to those two guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Mahomes, he's going over 300, probably over 350. And the Atlanta defense, they're bleeding points to the passing game this year. So guaranteed points there. So, but we're going to need around 25 from him to cover his floor value. But really, do you doubt that's going to happen? But it's all about the salaries and what you can fit in, of course. With Hurts, Dallas has been playing better. They have. Their secondary is not been beaten up as in early in the season, but we'll see how that goes. He's able to move the ball with his legs to elevate his floor. I absolutely think both of those guys are justified in their expected ownership for sure.
Let's work our way down, right? Because we have Chicago against the Jacksonville team. It just, the best thing about their season is that the Jets won last week. So they got to be super excited, at least management. I don't know who's sticking around as far as next year. So presumably not Glennon, he's probably not their starter at least. But you got a nice matchup here against Jacksonville, obviously. I think they're going to probably run the ball more as far as the opponents. Trubisky's kind of sort of someone interesting, but we'll talk about running backs there for Chicago. But yeah, Trubisky's been fairly reasonably cheap, and you have a nice pairing with Robinson, assuming Robinson goes. As far as we can tell, Robinson's going to be good to go later on today. The actives and inactives obviously don't come out to an hour and a half before kickoff, but I assume A-Rob will be available. But Watson, great matchup against Cincinnati. You want Cincinnati to kind of be able to keep up, and in theory they should, because Houston's defense is terrible. Watson has lost a lot of his weapons along the way, but he still kind of sort of gets it done. Lamar against the Giants. Giants pretty reasonable defense, and how much does Lamar have to do? Of course, he can get there just on his legs alone. 100 in the ground is certainly in the conversation as a possibility. The next tier: Watson, Trubisky, Jackson. Who does it for you in that grouping?
Well, Trubisky's definitely a value, but the problem with Trubisky is not going to be his efficiency against that defense. Their cover one is going to be, it's been abused just horribly the past few weeks. So I think Trubisky is going to be, he's going to get out to a fast start, and you're going to think, oh yeah, this is going really well, looking at your lineups and what you're currently pulling in. And then it's going to die down because they're going to build a lead. They're going to beat Jacksonville. And Jacksonville could always keep up like they have over the last, a lot prior to last week. They've been keeping some games close, but man, it's going to be tough with Glennon at quarterback for Jacksonville. I do like Watson. Watson's he's in a prime spot there against Cincinnati. Now we'll likely see William Jackson III shadow Brandon Cooks, so might not see as much output out of him. But Watson's shown that he can just do his thing no matter what wide receivers you take away, through trade or through shadow. So we can almost guarantee that. And yeah, with Jackson, so first thing, I know we're not getting into tight ends, but you just look at Mark Andrews. He's destroyed cover two over his career. So I have zero doubts Jackson's he's gonna do well. But if I was going to choose one of those guys, I guess I would go Watson. He's going up against the Cincinnati defense that, they played well last week against the Steelers, but the Steelers are struggling big time on offense. It's not their defense. Their defense did well. They were just on the field more last week.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Andrews because, typically, and this is what I do, I think this is a lot of people do, people go high-low at tight end. You spend all the way up at Kelsey, or you're spending all the way down on a guy like, Parham or Hooper, and Andrews is just kind of sort of there in the middle, the upper middle. And it's like, once I get to Andrews, now let me try to find a way to get somebody like Kelsey. A little trickier this week with them being 8.5K on DK, and I think he's like 8.8 or so on FanDuel. But Andrews will be mostly lost on this slate. I'm just pulling it up on the fly. I know we're not a tight end, but we're seeing less than 5% on DK as far as his ownership. Mm-hmm. This is the stuff you delve into as far as your article, and you're talking about cover two and things like that. And I'm on various shows and I hear a variety of opinions, and some people think wide receiver quarterback matchups are just overrated and we talk about them too much. And some people think, they stress it. And now you're not even talking about that. You're talking about schemes as well too. And as far as Cooks, you mentioned Cooks, and again, I know we're talking about quarterback, but it kind of delves into the conversation. You were talking about the previous matchups, like whoever the person was has done really well in the last 4 weeks. That was something you were breaking down in your article. And so you're saying if you're playing Deshaun, I should, at least your lean is QT over Cooks right now, if you're going to pair him.
QT he's the problem with QT is he's going to go up against Cincinnati, and they're a cover one defense. So he's going to look at a lot of his passing snaps against man, and he's one of the worst wide receivers in the league against man coverage. So it's really tough. I think if I was gonna go with a running or with a stack there, I would consider maybe David Johnson, maybe Chad Hansen. It's always tough with Watson because he doesn't really target a single guy as his go-to, or he hasn't been, this season without Will Fuller, and then obviously without DeAndre Hopkins. He's a tough stack for me, but I think he does enough on the ground that he could also be considered naked.
Yeah, and you could also, Akins. I know he's frustrated a lot of people this year. There's been some opportunities, dropped a couple touchdowns. He lost one, I think, in the lights that hit him on the shoulder pad, and he is still super cheap. And maybe there's some flop lag for this guy because people did play him pretty hard for several weeks, and now all of a sudden, I mean, we'll talk about Parham being interesting, and I think like a guy like Komet is still kind of sort of somewhat interesting. And maybe I'm just a sucker because I played him last week, and I feel like I got to get paid off one of these weeks. I'm due. It's the old martingale strategy, I suppose. Working our way down as far as other quarterbacks. Well, feel free. Is there anybody else that's popping for you? Anybody I have not mentioned yet? I've heard some Drew Lock talk out there. Matt Ryan, if you think on the comeback there against KC, there's some efficiency issues without Julio, but like in theory, playing back, on the comeback against KC and ready-made pairings. You talk about Ridley, Gage is in play as well too. Russ is just like they're just not letting Russ do things anymore. It's unfortunate. It's so sad what's going on there. He was the MVP. You remember the Seattle Seahawks? You remember this team?
Yeah, they're fresh on the mind. It hurts, man, because it was better for the NFL when they took the handcuffs off of him. It's a shame, but I will say that even last week, okay, if you watch the game, he hit Freddie Swain deep down that left sideline, but then they ruled that he stepped out of bounds. But that just highlighted where the Washington secondary was vulnerable. He didn't do it the rest of the game. Didn't target another receiver anywhere 20 yards downfield, and I just don't understand what he's doing. He was just dinking and dunking. That's not the Russell Wilson we know.
Yeah, and I think Metcalf was. I mean, again, this is quarterback wide receiver stuff, but I'm pretty sure he was shut down last time he faced. Who's the guy? Ramsey on the Rams.
Yep.
Lockett is. I don't know. I mean, I still think maybe there might have been something to Lockett's knee injury, like that was like a month or two ago, and like he's been terrible basically every week of like one or two, for like at least like the last 10 weeks or something like that. I don't know what's going on, and of course now they're stressing they want to run the ball because. Pete Carroll's summoning his inner, Vince Lombardi thinks he got to run the ball 40 or 50 times in the year 2020. It's kind of a mess. But it feels like the names feel interesting in that game because if it's not the KC Atlanta game or the KC side, what is the other team? Like what's the team that's going to pop that we don't necessarily see coming? Maybe the Chargers?
Well, yeah, that game, both sides. I think Justin Herbert's a great contrarian play, but the real value is Drew Lock. Now, here's the thing: I do not like Drew Lock. I am not a supporter. I think I even call into question the Denver front office and their ability to evaluate quarterbacks, at least up to over the last 10 years. Now, I mean, I'm not saying anything about Peyton Manning, of course. I'm talking about the guys that they're drafting, the guys that they're signing, the young guys. This guy is not a starting quarterback in the NFL, but what has got him to this point in his career is he has pwned cover 3 over his career. I mean, destroyed it. We're talking some of the top numbers across the league, that good. And this is the perfect matchup. The Chargers play cover 3 at the highest rate in the NFL. So for me at 5,000, I'm all over Drew Lock. And now I know this is going to go against everyone's, their thing. They want to make sure they're playing the highest owned players. But in my opinion, you could play Drew Lock in cash.
Oh,
He's that locked in against this type of secondary that he'll see. Now, trying to identify the stack, that's a little trickier, but we'll get into stacks later. So I don't want to ruin that. But yeah, I mean, looking at the rest, yeah, like I said, Justin Herbert, I think he's a little underowned there. At least the numbers I have in front of me. I don't know what you have, but 5% or something around there, 5 to 7%. So I mean, he's a great contrarian play there. He's still going to cost you a little bit of money, but and then Andy Dalton going up against the Eagles. They'll be getting a Darius Slay back. Philadelphia will, so he'll probably be on Cooper. So we can count on Cooper being taken out of this game. I wouldn't be surprised if he scores less than 10 points. But we've seen him do pretty well, and even in the games where I've gone against him, he's actually done pretty well, and that's pretty extraordinary with that offensive line just being a patchwork collection that it is.
all right. I got a bunch of questions and all the stuff you said. First of all, you talked about the Chargers playing cover 3 and Locke just ravages cover 3, right, throughout his history.
Yeah.
Do the Chargers know this? Like, do they know this, and do they care? Like the X's and O's, or can they even change it? Like that's their defense and that's that.
They can't change it.
Okay.
It's too late in the season, but it doesn't matter. We've got so much history of the Chargers playing cover 3 at this rate over the last, go back the last 2 seasons, and they have consistently played it no matter what. Now, they're not looking at Drew Lock and being like, this guy's going to destroy our cover 3.
Yeah.
No, they don't look at it that way. They look at it like, we're going to shut down this guy with our cover 3. But to them, they probably don't even think about it. They go into their defensive practices, and they're practicing cover 3 without a second thought. There is no chance you will see anything different. You might see some extra cover 2. It really depends on what they're trying to do. All NFL teams will try to mask the coverages to just to give different looks and make the quarterback think. So they may go from a cover 3 to a cover 3 seam, which moves the linebackers, the slot corners a little bit differently. So they'll give some variations to the cover 3, but Locke he's good at picking those up. Now, again, if they think they're going to run the ball, you'll see him drop into man coverage. That's pretty common across the NFL.
I would say this, like my perspective as far as the Lock and cash is, I would do something like that if it was getting me Devontae Adams, if it was getting me Derrick Henry, if it was getting me the elite amongst the elite. And I don't know what the savings gets me this week. It's sort of like outside of, I guess, Kelsey, or maybe if you trust Tyreek or something like that. But otherwise, like the most expensive running backs this week are Chubb and Montgomery in this 10 gamer. That's sort of my thought. Is, I mean, for tournaments, yeah, all systems go fire away, and it's super, super cheap. You can pair Lock with Patrick or Judy or Hamler, if you believe that. Fant at tight end. Do you have a favorite amongst his pass catchers?
Yeah, Fant has done really well. He's tailed right along with Lock against cover 3. So Fant is the guy there. But if you're gonna, that's the thing about cash. If it's like you said, if you want to put Lock at quarterback, you're gonna want to cash in at the other positions. And the thing about it is, one of the guys that you're trying to fit in there with the guy like Lock is Kelsey, and that just doesn't leave room for for Fant. So it's not, I wouldn't recommend it. What I really meant to say is that I'm so confident in Lock this season that I could say that.
Understood. All right. Is there anybody else at quarterback that's worth venturing into, or we kind of move into running backs?
Well, one guy I would say I would like to just toss in there for GPPs is Brandon Allen. I know he's not somebody that everyone is in love with. He's another quarterback that is dominant against cover 3. So throwing a tourney dart out there with Brandon Allen is not the worst idea. Going up against Houston, they are a man coverage defense, but when they read obvious pass situations, they fall into a cover 3. So we could see some decent output from Higgins. I can't remember if Boyd is 100%. That slips my mind, but I know Higgins could be a good play there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Boyd is out. So
okay.
Yeah, it is going to be Higgins' world in theory. And you expect it is a good matchup here against Houston. Obviously, one of the weaker offenses and all defenses in all football. But the team total there for Cincinnati that's 18 and change.
Yeah.
Partly because of the existence of Brandon Allen, I suppose. But he's another guy who's just crazy cheap, 4.8K.
Yeah.
If you want to get yourself a cheap stack. And it is interesting because Higgins is popping as one of the good point per dollar wide receivers and kind of make things work. And even Even AJ Green is another guy that like looks playable at just $400 above the floor, at least on DK specifically. Let's pivot to running backs. As we're doing that, do you want to mention our promo with PrizePicks is still continuing. We've actually expanded it. $100 deposit bonus up to $100 off. I'm sorry, up to $100 by using the promo code Grinders. So $100 deposit bonus, get yourself 100%. Wait, wow, I am saying this completely incorrectly. $100 would get you 100% deposit bonus. Use the promo code Grinders. Not just that, you get yourself 2 months free of RG Premium. Devin, our fabulous multitasking producer, is going to go ahead and drop that link in chat if you guys want to learn more about that. Chat, that's YouTube. What up, YouTube? Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We do appreciate that. It helps us out with the old algorithm. I took the liberty of taking a couple picks on PrizePicks, and basically it's just over under. They set a number. Are they going to get more fantasy points or less fantasy points? We talked about this very briefly before the show. I gave 3. I just rapid fired, and I took Eckler over 18, Montgomery over 18. Just he's been fabulous of late. I know it's super chalky. I think that number is just a little bit too low, especially without Cordell Patterson. I presume is not going to play today, who takes a little bit off him, and then Gio Bernard, who I don't know what that Cincy offense is going to do, but he did have an incredible amount of touches last week, assuming he doesn't fumble in the first play. Not that he's like a part of their future or anything, but I think 10.5 is a little bit too low. So I like the over on all 3 of those. And of course, the Chargers, Eckler, Keenan Allen may or may not go today. I assume he's not going to be a full go, even if he does dress. Henry, of course, is out as well. Nice matchup there against a Denver team that is just ravaged defensively as well. So I don't know. Feel free. Well, we'll talk about those guys actually in a second, because that's kind of the top as far as ownership. Eckler and Montgomery. I'm just hitting the refresh button here as far as our running backs. And yeah, Montgomery is 1/3 of the field, and Eckler right under that, basically at 30% as well. Is that good chalk or is that bad chalk?
Well, that is the chalk. After those two, the drop off is pretty significant as far as guaranteed numbers, because I think Chubb is the other guy that you would, of course he's going to cost a little more than the other guys, but with Chubb, the thing about the Jets last week that was very surprising is they held the Rams to the lowest fantasy points at running back of all NFL teams from week 15. And I don't know what's going on there. They did lose Quinnen Williams, and so we'll see. That defensive line was nasty, but I still think Chubb gets it done. But I think there's enough doubt thrown in there because of how well they played against the Rams that it's within reason that he's lower than the other guys. But Montgomery and Eckler, they're guaranteed points against these defenses that have really struggled against the run.
And that just kind of speaks to this slate. Like, I mean, it's not that long ago. I'm old enough to remember when David Montgomery was like 5 and change, and people are like, ugh, David Montgomery, I don't want to play this guy. He's like, now he's 7-7, the second most expensive running back on DK, basically second or third on FanDuel as well. And people are rushing to play Montgomery, and he's been fabulous. He's a true bell cow. And again, Cordell Patterson, I assume, is not going to play today. I'm not sure if that's official. I don't believe he's practiced all week. He was siphoning just a few carries here and there. He took a couple goal line carries as well too, which I think just bolsters him just a little bit more. Chubb is interesting because Cleveland might run the ball 50 times today. Is that hyperbolic, or is that possible?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're running at I believe it's still the highest rate in the league. So yeah, absolutely. He's going to eat, and he's going to eat well, in my opinion, against the Jets. But I just think there's going to be enough doubts going around there with that information out there of how well the Jets played last week. But I think he and Hunt are going to play very well today.
Yeah, I think both are super playable. I don't know. So I was listening to the premium podcast with Dan Bach on it earlier, and Tip and Pick and Ansel Cards, and Dan said, he goes, I never really advocate this, but it's a 10-game slate. And, we think that Chubb and Hunt can both get theirs, that they can both eat. Like, it's possible you can roster both running backs here against the Jets. 25 team total. They have no wide receivers. I mean, Marvin Hall, they got off I'm sure he's at home. I don't know what we say he's off the street, but he was on Detroit earlier this year. A person named Jamarcus Bradley, and there's a guy named Willis, who I don't think is available in DK. I think he's just FanDuel available. So yeah, if Cleveland had their druthers, they would just shove it down the Jets' throat today, and it feels like they can do that with the combination of Chubb and Hunt, and they might work Johnson a little bit to some extent if the game blows out or something like that. Or Is there anything to that, like playing Chubb and Hunt together? Does that crush the ceiling, or you think it's there's a way to get there where they both pay off?
Well, it's interesting because yesterday I had given some thought to possibly playing Ahmed and shoot, who's the other
Gaston.
Gaskin. I thought about playing both of them, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I went with Gaskin because I thought, going up against that pitiful Raiders run defense, but they gave nothing to Ahmed. We know better than that with the Browns. But man, I just don't know. I don't know if I could do it. Both of them in the same lineup. I think it's a great matchup. I think that we're going to see the Jets kind of revert back to somewhere. They were giving up the most points to entire fantasy offenses for I don't know how many weeks in a row, 6 weeks or 5 weeks in a row. And since their bye, when they basically put their entire secondary on IR, but I think we're going to see them revert back a little bit. And yeah, I think I would play both of them without I play one of them without hesitation for both of them. Just in a GPP, obviously, and I think just a dart. I wouldn't put anything significant on that.
Yeah, I mean, and you could also argue that they can be on the field together because Hunt's going to be split out wide because they just have no receivers. So,
well, let's not forget about Hooper. He's in a great matchup, smash spot.
Yeah, we'll talk about him and like how much. I mean, there still was Bryant, there still was Njoku. They're probably going to play 2 tight end sets, I assume. Like you would know better than me, but that sort of makes sense as well. And Hooper is one of those guys that I don't know if he's going to be lost, but I think Parham's going to be more heavily owned than Hooper. I think just kind of the way the build works, and that might be wrong. But we know more of a salary cap, and he's 1K cheaper, and I think people are excited about playing Parham. Maybe it's just me. He played in the XFL, right? Have you heard that?
Yeah, yeah. We had to grade every XFL game. I'm unfortunately aware of all of that. When I was at PFF, I mean, just to clarify.
Yeah, he's like 6'8". He's a big dude.
Yeah, and he's good. He's decent. I'm just not that excited about him.
Lev Bell. In theory, you're supposed to be excited about Lev Bell, right? Monster team total. Big heavy favorite at home, but like they just don't run the ball anymore. Obviously, CEH is out, but like the Darrell Williams, Darwin Thompson are kind of sort of lurking. I'm not sure how much they'll spell. Are we interested in Lev Bell? By the way, Nick Chubb, birthday narrative. It's his birthday. Did you factor that into your model? Does that do anything for you?
It is. I think last week we saw Leonard Fournette vulture 2 1-yard touchdowns outside of his pretty much empty production. We could see something similar from Bell. The thing about it isn't that I don't like Bell. It's that the Falcons run defense has been really good this season. I think they've struggled in the past couple of weeks, but I'm not excited about Bell. But this is a short slate, so there's nothing wrong with going after Bell. He's a value at 5,800. I think he catches the ball, and I think we can take the fork out of Le'Veon. I think he's got a little more value than is being spread around as far as season long community. I think he'll have a little more value next season if he can get into a situation without having to play the secondary fiddle.
The entire backfield for Houston should belong to David Johnson, basically game script proof, I think. With Duke being out once again, I wouldn't count on him catching 11 balls. They're obviously playing catch up that game. That probably isn't going to happen today as far as the projected game script. Melvin Gordon, playing against his former team and without Lindsey. So that backfield should be his as well. So I think he's kind of sort of somewhat interesting as well in the conversation. And then, what are the Rams going to do with Akers out? I think it's more likely to be Henderson, but I don't say that with confidence. Thoughts?
Well, but you're only paying 4,500 for Henderson, so it's something where you want exposure. You want a certain level of exposure there to Henderson, absolutely. But Malcolm Brown, he'll probably get his as well. So both of them are just ridiculous values going against Seattle. Now Seattle's been better or they were dominant against the run early. They struggled a little bit, and they've been better the last few weeks. So we'll see there. But last week in particular, they didn't do very well in stopping J.D. McKissick, and he's not exactly known for his ground game. So we'll see. I think both of those guys, with the number that the Rams throw at their running backs, the percentage of snaps that they run the ball, I think they both could have some value. Nothing like Chubb or Hunt, but I think Henderson is justified for being owned in around 20% of leagues, or around that number. So we'll see.
We have still minimum running backs there in Jacksonville. I don't really know what the breakdown is going to be, and I don't think I care. Like there's no James Robinson. I don't think it's worth. There's a bit of an opportunity cost, and those guys aren't that much more expensive. And again, it's not that hard to get in the 5K guys. I don't know if I need the 4K guys. I'd rather scrape the barrel as far as the wide receivers and throw darts there. We didn't talk about Miles Sanders, but I think he's certainly interesting as well against Dallas. And, I think he's benefits with Hurts being there. The potential of Hurts running opens things up a little bit more for him as far as the lanes to run the ball. And who else did I have a list? Okay, so this is kind of the wild card. Antonio Gibson. It's a late game. I'm assuming he's going to play. The news is that he's going to play. How much is he going to play? I don't know. But if we get ceiling like 24, 25, 26 opportunities against Carolina, he's a guy that can be the top running back on the slate. He could also maybe tough it out. He's got that turf toe, and they said he came back early, and maybe he only goes 5 or 6 plays, and that's that. Shoot him up, and then whatever they give him before the game, it wears off at halftime. I don't know what to do with Gibson, but for sure I'm going to have at least a couple tournament shares there just in case, betting on that ceiling. And Washington has an incentive. Week 16, Week 17, we care about who's incentivized. They're one of the teams still battling for something. What's your lean as far as Gibson? Because I feel like the potential outcomes are greater for Gibson than most every other running back.
I want to believe that if he plays, he's healthy enough to play. I've got some colleagues who feel that turf toe is so hard to deal with that we really need to be concerned. And so I do have to weigh that. But I mean, look at the list. It's not loaded with guys that you're just dying to play outside of Eckler and Montgomery. I think he's definitely in play. I'd slot him into my top 6 at running back, and it's kind of funny. He comes off of that turf toe, and he's priced higher than he has been all season. But yeah, that's a great matchup against Carolina. They've just been abused by running backs. So we'll see. If I try to sit here and tell you I know how much of a timeshare he's going to get, I'm sure I'd be proven wrong. So it's tough, man. It's so tough to try to get into the mind of Ron Rivera and say, hey, this guy's going to play this. So we'll see. I'm banking on him in a championship game, my man. And the same goes for James Robinson's backup. I had to pick up Dare to fill in for him. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm not going to take a shot at that last name. Ugamawale, I believe it is, something like that. That's about as close as I can get. Just you didn't play against what's his name, Kamara. I hope. Like you're not already dead.
No. Luckily, I've avoided Kamara in all my championship games. But yeah, as long as we don't throw thesaurus in there and I stumble through it, then you'll be good.
It's a callback to our pre-show conversation. Well done. Any other running backs that are worth talking about here? I'm trying to see who the chat's kind of on. They're talking about Gibson. And again, I'm with you. I don't know. Like, it's okay to say you don't know and just throw darts. I don't have a good read on it, but I understand if everything is clean and he's good to go with this matchup, he can be the top scorer on the slate. He also can put 4 points and get 5 carries, re-aggravate, or he's just trying to tough it out and he just can't do it. It's possible maybe he doesn't play and then McKissick all of a sudden is interesting. By the way, that game was supposed to be a 1:00 game and it got changed to a 4:00 game. So just understand, at least that's kind of what I was looking at earlier today. It's important to late swap. That's something we don't talk about enough, but it's very, very important to late swap, especially even in cash games, tournaments as well too. You can kind of go through and see, well, how can I catch up to this guy? Well, they have the same player I do and I'm 3 points behind. You got to switch. Especially if the first prize is loaded as well. Anybody else that's kind of sort of somewhat interesting as far as running backs that we should sort of throw out there? Zeke he's going to play. He's expected to play. Okay. He's feeling threatened by Pollard's good game, I suppose.
Yeah.
But they're asking full price, and I assume Pollard's. He was getting 25-30% anyway. I feel like he's earned that. So Zeke's not going to be a quote unquote workhorse, but I know he's going to play him, but I don't think I am either. That's sort of where I'm at. Ito Smith is probably the number one running back in Atlanta, if you care.
Yeah.
Like if that does anything for you, like if you want to have a run back, and he's probably game script proof because he's probably their receiving back as well too. And they're probably going to be behind if you trust that's the way that game's going to go. Like Gurley, forget it. Don't play Gurley. You got anything else as far as running back? You want to talk about some receivers?
Well, when we were talking about Brandon Allen, or I was, you could always throw Geo in there as a stack, and that's possible. Carson, I think there's so much attention given to Russell Wilson that he's kind of forgotten sometimes. So we could see something out of him. And then, I think one of the things we've all been waiting for J.K. Dobbins to have his big game. The Giants haven't been that great against running backs, so maybe we see something out of him. But again, he's priced a little high for taking that stab. I think I like Ito. I think Ito is going to do well enough as long as they're committed to him. But, when you get down to these guys here, there's a reason that they're so under-owned, is because there's so many questions surrounding their status that it makes it really hard to trust them. But yeah, I mean, you could throw a lot of darts at these guys down here, and it could possibly pay off big.
Yeah, the Dobbins one's tricky because they're charging you a lot of money per touch, because he's almost definitely not going to catch the ball more than once, maybe twice. I think he got one catch last week. Just not receiving the ball. I know Ingram's been basically phased out, but Lamar takes a lot of stuff on the ground, especially at the goal line. We saw in a blowout game last week, I believe he had like 10 or 11 touches, maybe 12 touches or something like that. I just have and Edwards, of course, gets his, and even Justice Hill gets a pinch too. I just don't think I'm getting enough for what they're, of course he can break one for 70 yards, and who cares? Doesn't matter. Like that.
It's a shame too, because Dobbins, he caught a lot of passes at Ohio State. He's better than that. He's more multi-dimensional. So we'll see what they end up doing. But I'd love to see him, unleash him and let him do his thing.
Another injury we don't know, and we're just going to be guessing on, but he's going to be super popular today, or at least I don't know if he's going to be super popular. Actually, our projections think he's going to be popular, and people are not going to be scared at Tyreek Hill. There was a note that they're going to kind of, they didn't say monitor him, but what was it? They're going to be cautious with him, or like, I can't remember how it was phrased. I don't know if it was Rappaport or Scheffler. It was one of the beat writers I read earlier today. But of course, the ceiling is absolutely immense against Atlanta, and biggest total, biggest athlete in the just getting loose in the secondary. And, Tyreek is just, once he's gone. You're not going to catch him. I don't know what to do with him. Cash games, I don't know what to do with him. It feels safer to go with Kelsey. You just like lock in his 8 catches. Like that's going to happen. What are your thoughts as far as Tyreek Hill today?
I'm fading him for Ridley or Robinson. I don't think Hill is it just what the way you described it right there just justified the way I feel. I just don't feel comfortable paying so much for somebody that a team is trying to be cautious with. We saw that though with a few weeks back when the Vikings played Jacksonville, and they were, oh yeah, Dalvin Cook, this is the game where we rest him, where he gets healthy and blah blah blah, and then he ends up taking over 30 carries. Just so it's a lot of it is coach talk. So we'll see. I'm perfectly fine with fading Hill. I mean, he's in a smash spot. Don't get me wrong. And I think you can. I'd comfortably play him in a GPP lineup. But man, it'd be tough. It'd be tough for me to be convinced to play him in cash with the surrounding details.
Does that just make you love Kelsey? I mean, of course you like Kelsey. It's just a matter of like how do you make him work as far as your lineup, but. Are we interested in Watkins? Miko Hardman on DK is 3-1, like $100 above the floor. What do you have, 9? If we think he gets 9 targets again or anywhere near that, that's obviously an awesome play. We've also seen him disappear. We also seen him just get in the field for like 30% of the snaps. So what are we going to get there? I don't know. As far as the Kansas City offense overall, are you just locking the button on Kelsey, or what's your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey's a lock independent of anyone. I mean, we're talking the guy that's what the only receiver in the league that's gone for over 1,000 yards 5 years straight. So this guy is, I mean, he's the not very far from a Devontae Adams, or a healthy Michael Thomas. This guy is as consistent as it gets, and you're going to pay up for him. But I think he's much more of a guarantee than Tyreek Hill. Because what you're wanting from Tyreek is his speed, and you don't want to hear anything that's going to tap into his speed. But with Ridley and Robinson, you've got some great secondary options that are really underpriced there. What's his name, Wilson, or
Trubisky?
no, the backup or the slot receiver in Atlanta. But and then you got
Gage.
Mooney. Yeah, Russell Gage. So he's a decent value. He did something the last 2 weeks. And then you got Mooney for Chicago going up against Jacksonville is another good value as a secondary option to those 20% owned receivers.
Yeah, we can jump down because they're talking about like the value plays, and again, hold your nose on some of them. But like AJ Green is 3-4 on DK. Cam Sims is another guy that I've seen thrown out there. With McLaurin being out, he should get at least some opportunity. Michael Gallup is still pretty cheap, assuming he's fine off his injuries. 4-1 on DK. Laviska Shenault is 3-7. Jerry Judy's 3-7. Marvin Hall is like the last, we always say last man. He's like the last man standing here for Cleveland. They do have a couple of dudes that, Bradley and Willies, but Marvin Hall seems like their best option, and he's still a minimum 4-5 on FanDuel, 3K on DK. Amongst the cheapies, like amongst the ones that kind of make the rest of your lineup work. Do you have a favorite
on Cleveland
or anybody, any team?
Geez, for as far as value goes, my favorite's Tyron Johnson. I love him. And I'm sitting around waiting for Keenan Allen's status to be released because I think he could have a big game and easily provide multiples of value. So if I'm picking one guy, it's him. And then if I'm going deeper, some guys you want to consider. DJ Moore, he's going to cost you $5,800 on DraftKings, but he's a guy that he's going to be attacking the area of Washington that is very vulnerable. That we've seen them give up points, and then I think Chad Hansen's another good value. He's going up against that Cincinnati secondary opposite the William Jackson shadow. And like you said, Mecole Hardman, but for me, Sammy Watkins is the guy that I think is going to benefit the most. He led the team in receiving yards last week, so I think he could be the guy that ends up getting a decent share, a decent portion of the prize there. And I do like Jerry Jeudy. I'd like to have seen him been a little more consistent. And then Greg Ward, he's if we're looking at who Hurts is targeting the most, he's given those money targets to Greg Ward. So that's another guy that comes in at a really cheap price.
So my one question about Tyron Johnson, and we're assuming that Keenan Allen's not going to play. We'll see. That's a later game, obviously. It's not that much more for Mike Williams, who I think is actually off the injury report. He's like, if you're going to play the Family Feud, like the Family Feud board is guys most likely not to finish the game. It feels like Mike Williams is one of the. It's a good answer. Good answer. I don't think you're getting a strike necessarily, but he's 4-5. Yeah. Johnson's certainly interesting at 4 as well too. But I have some interest in Williams, but he's just another one of those guys you never really know what you're going to get out of him. Let's work our way. What about T. Higgins, by the way? I guess you're in on that as far as the cheapie. 4-7. I think he's 5-8 on FanDuel, against Houston. Interesting run back and, not an ideal quarterback situation, but he should get at least 20, 25% of the target share or something like that in the Cincinnati team. Any thoughts on the rookie there, T. Higgins?
Oh, absolutely. If I'm even looking at the Cincinnati offense, he's the guy that I'm looking at there. It's just he's in a great spot with his quarterback. I'm not in love with playing his quarterback, but it's something that he has done well against that type of secondary in the past. So I think the beneficiary will be T. Higgins, no question.
I'm having a similar approach. I was talking about, Hill there for Kansas City, talking about the running back there for Washington, Gibson, as I do for Allen Robinson. Like, I'm not sure what the deal is with their injuries. I assume Robinson's going to go. I assume he wants to play against his old team and light them up. I will for sure have shares of all his guys in tournaments. I'm not sure how I feel about Robinson in cash. I don't know if he fits that bill. But I would fully love him if he was like totally healthy and whatever. And I guess he's mostly fine. It feels like he's dealt with this, for several weeks, kind of on and off. So he's sort of interesting. Your favorite Ram receiver, is it Woods or is it Cup, which is always a fun game to play?
Yeah, well, they're gonna see cover three from Seattle. Cup's not as he's not done as well against zone. He's particularly a man coverage destroyer. So Woods is the guy there for sure for me. He's done well against cover three. He's done well against Seattle as well.
You mentioned him in passing earlier in the show, and his price is super down. But you were talking about the cornerback wide receiver matchups. Again, some people love it, some people hate it, some people are in the middle on it. Some people take a stand, some people don't. Cooper has been shut down by the dude on Philadelphia. I'm losing his name for some reason.
Darius Slay.
Slay. Now that's the history. But Slay, some would argue, has not been, and I haven't seen the PFF grade, but I hear people talking. He's been down, right? Cooper's kind of been down too, I guess, for various reasons. Also, how much do you trust that? How much do you care about that? Is the price cheap enough? Cooper's 5.7 on DK, which is basically the cheapest he's been all season long. He's super cheap on Yahoo as well. Or you just say, hey, I don't trust them in this matchup, and I'd rather go to Gallup. I'd rather go to Lamb or somebody like that.
Yeah, my buddy Scott Barrett has done a lot of research on the players that are most vulnerable to shadows, and the number one guy on his list is Amari Cooper. It would be very contrarian to just play him anyway. And like you said, his value is down. I think Gallup is the guy that's going to have the good game, and you can never count out CD Lamb. I just think that and as far as okay, Darius Slay, he hasn't been playing well. He has been injured, but we could say what percentage of that is his actual injury, and what percentage of that is going up against Devontae Adams and DK Metcalf and things like that. I think he's done well enough over his over the season. At least we could take that back even further. He's done well enough that we can give him the benefit of the doubt that the injuries combined with the matchups, he played some very physical guys, some very guys that are difficult to cover. I think I think we can count on seeing a Slay get back to the type of Darius Slay that we're used to seeing prior to those very difficult matchups. So I'm not comfortable at all playing Amari Cooper. I'll just say that right now.
Just checking out the chat here on YouTube. Feel free to like, subscribe, hit the notifications. I do appreciate that. I see a celebrity in the chat, one David Kaplan. They know him better as Head Chopper, new millionaire Head Chopper. Congratulations, Chop. He's also a Cowboys fan. He's going to be on the show next. He's warming up in the bullpen. I'm sure he'll have some takes as far as his Cowboys as well. And he's bluffing on me about my UCF. Hey, you can't win the national championship every single year. Yes, congratulations. Houston beat UCF. Well done. I guess that was basketball. I don't watch college basketball. I see some questions in there too. We're here for the next 12 minutes or so. And again, we're going to turn it over to Head Chopper and Tambo. They're also going to be showing off the lineup HQ tool here. If you guys want access to that, Devin will go ahead and drop a link for you guys. You get $10 off your first month. All right. Unless you have any other receivers, we can move over to tight ends. And, we've referenced it several times, obviously. And you don't need us to tell you that Travis Kelce is a phenomenal play. It's just a matter of lineup construction. I'm curious what your take is as far as Donald Parham. And how viable of a play he is. 4.2 on FanDuel, 2.5 on DK, $10 on Yahoo. Whenever he's in the field, they seem to want to get him the ball. Their last play of the game earlier in the year, they threw the ball to him several times. They trusted him. Herbert trusted him. This Denver defense, we know the secondary has been ravaged as the season's progressed. And then, of course, there's some guys in the middle that are worth talking about. I know you hinted about Hooper, and other people in the chat were asking about the other receivers on Cleveland, the other tight ends, Njoku and Harrison, if those guys are viable. The overall thought as far as the tight end position, what do you have for me?
Well, with Parham, I'm not as excited. I would love to see him going up against a cover one, a lot of man coverage. He's destroyed that in the few snaps that we do have, and that's what makes it so hard with him. We don't have enough snaps. I mean, what's he played? 68 routes, 13 targets. How can we pull out reliable numbers or expectations from that? We can't. As far as the Browns, I love Hooper. He's going up against cover 2, cover 6 from the Jets, and those are two that he has done really well against. and especially against cover six. He's a guy that he knows how to diagnose the zone coverages, identify those holes, and sit, which is exactly what you need to do. You don't need to do anything sexy. You don't need to attack that, anything vertically down the seam. Just find those holes and sit, and that's what Hooper does really well. I love him in this spot. And then as far as Njoku or Harrison Bryant, I mean, with Bryant, we have 33 targets, so we can start to draw some decent, reliable numbers from that. And the thing that he's done mainly is against man coverage, and so I'm a little hesitant to throw anything at him. Njoku, I think he's a little more versatile at this point in his career. And with Harrison Bryant, it's not so much that we should typify him as a man coverage guy. It's just that at this point in his career, I mean, we all know that rookie tight ends, it takes them a little bit to develop. So I would imagine after a couple more seasons, we can look at Bryant as more of a versatile guy against zone coverage. But I think Njoku, if you were going to pick somebody between those two, would be the guy that could do a little bit better against the heavy zone that he's going to see from New York.
If you're going to save some salary at quarterback, I don't mind Fant, 4.8 on DK. Dallas Goedert still a pretty reasonable price there, 3.6 on DK. Interesting pairing with Hurts. You mentioned Ward as well too as a potential pairing. I think you could even play Hurts by himself. You can do that. I don't think you necessarily have to force it, but I don't mind Goddard at 3.6. I see the chat talking about getting excited about Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas has had some outrageous games this year, some really bad games and some really outrageous games. Is this going to be one of those games where he gets those 10 catches, or what do we know as far as Logan today?
Yeah, he's gonna get double-digit targets. But the thing with him is he's gonna be so highly owned because everybody's gonna be on him. I don't know what the exact numbers are. Let's see, what was it, Logan?
I'm seeing 9% because people are gonna go up to Kelsey. Or
I think that's going to be higher because that's exactly the number that I have. I don't think Logan's going to be at 9%. I think he's going to be higher. I think that's a slight under estimation. But I think he's an excellent pivot from Kelsey. I don't think he's going to put up the Kelsey touchdowns that we're likely going to see. And the thing about Goddard though is that Ertz outsnapped him last week. And the thing with that is I think what Philadelphia is doing is they're trying to showcase Ertz to move him in the offseason because they know what they have with Goddard. I think Goddard's, his long-term potential is absolutely high. I just don't feel comfortable with him this week. And so we'll see what happens there. He's definitely priced right at 3,600 on DraftKings. And then Noah Fant, like you mentioned, he's somebody I'm big on. If you're not going to play Kelsey, you're not going to go after Andrews, Thomas, Hooper. Also like Hayden Hurst against Kansas City. I like Cole Kmet. I think Fant is a guy that we can slot in right around those other guys.
All right, I'm just having fun with the chat, saying all the chat here on YouTube. Feel free to like and subscribe. We do appreciate that. Am I begging? Am I asking for too much as far as the likes and subscribes? Maybe. I don't know. We want to get him up for Chopper. Chopper's coming up next, along with Tambo. We take you guys all up the lock. You don't have to change the channel, obviously. Defense? Do you have any defenses take? Is it all just sort of variance, or is some sort of defense popping for you?
Yeah, I mean, the Bears obviously are going to be really highly owned, and that's somebody we can consider. Also, the Seahawks and the Rams, in my opinion, is going to be a low-scoring game, so we can look there. Washington is a really good one. They play Teddy Bridgewater, who is possibly the best cover one quarterback in the NFL. So he loves the man coverage. He's not going to see any of that from Washington. Over his career, he has struggled mightily against cover 3, cover 4. And I'm counting on that today. So Washington with that nasty pass rush, I think they're going to get to Bridgewater. Obviously you're wanting to look at the Browns going up against the Jets. I mean, who's counting on the Jets repeating what they did last week, which they got a little lucky with the Akers going down with that high ankle sprain early, and that really changed what the Rams were trying to do and what they had intended to do. So I'm not anticipating that happening. And even if Chubb were to go down, Hunt can come in we've already seen him do, really well without him. So, that's somebody. And then, how well is Daniel Jones? Is he at what, 60, 70%? We've already seen him play him at what, 40%. So, and with that nasty Ravens pass rush, that could be a value. It's pretty deep at defense, actually, of teams that you can actually rely on.
All right. Some questions loading up in chat. Feel free to ask some questions. We'll do our best to knock out as many as possible before we step aside in the next 3 to 4 minutes or so. Before you do that, tell me some of your favorite stacks. Some favorite stack, favorite correlation plays, favorite game stack, whatever works for you.
Yeah, I think as long as Jacksonville can somewhat keep the score close, I think Trubisky and Allen Robinson, maybe even Mooney with as far as a run back, that's that's not very sexy. But then you got Jalen Hurts. I do like him. He does enough with his legs that he could possibly be alone. I mean, Deshaun Jackson, I think he's supposed to play.
He's 3K. Somebody just asked about him in chat, and he's apparently activated. I don't know how much he's going to play, but he's also one of those guys that, theoretically just needs one play. Like, that's it, and he's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead. I'm going to cut you off, but go ahead.
No, you're fine. Shades, this is your show, buddy. And yeah, I think Deshaun Jackson and Rager, I think are both excellent options, guys that can take the lid off the defense. Miles Sanders can also catch some passes, so I like that. Okay, so here's one that we obviously don't like Matt Ryan as much without Julio Jones, but we did see him play pretty well last week against the Buccaneers. And he'll go against the Kansas City defense that's going to play some similar exotic packages that we saw him do really, really well against last week. So that's somebody. But, like I said early in the show, Justin Herbert and Drew Lock, I mean, those are probably my favorite two stacks right there. Herbert with Tyron, like you said, Mike Williams, maybe we'll get something out of him. I'm not completely convinced that he doesn't need a change of scenery. He's not capitalizing on all that potential we know he has. He's a very athletic player, obviously former first round pick there. And then I do like a guy like KJ Hamler could be a really good GPP dart with how well Drew Lock has played against cover 3. Go back a couple of weeks. I forget who he played, but he was somebody who did really well. With Hamler hitting for a couple of touchdowns. Carolina, week 14, 4 touchdown passes, the second highest rate of cover 3. Was Carolina. So, and then you go back even earlier in the year, week 8, scored 21 points against the Chargers, the same defense. So obviously a good play there. I hate talking about him so much because I'm not a big fan. I think he's out of the league or backing up another quarterback in a few years.
Same. But that does feel like the game that's like most likely to get goofy that we don't expect. It's the Chargers. Games always get goofy with the Chargers. Cutie or Jeffrey in a cash game. I can't imagine you don't play Cutie over Jeffrey if the salary does not matter. A couple more questions. Metcalf. We didn't talk about Metcalf, but I think he's another guy that if you trust the matchups, it's not a positive matchup. Now, of course, Metcalf is an absolute beast and can crush versus anybody in theory, but I think you're down on Metcalf this week. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what we saw him do well against Darius Slay. I'm starting to get, but then again, we saw him do well against Stephon Gilmore. So what are the things that we're noticing there? Obviously we've got some mixed results. He's getting closed down by some shadows, other shadows he's doing well. Well, the thing that we can separate there is he's not done well against zone shadows. And that's what he's going to get today from Jalen Ramsey. Even if they try to mix it up and they don't put Ramsey across from him on a few plays to make him get comfortable, and then all of a sudden, right when they think, oh, it's not going to be Ramsey, I'm gonna and the professor goes after Metcalf, Ramsey's he'll switch over there. So I think it's a situation to completely avoid. I would stay away from Metcalf. He's way too high to be considered and even if it's Darius Williams, he's been phenomenal this year. Their entire secondary is just they've been locked down this year. There have been a few coverage busts. We saw Dan Arnold score a 59-yard touchdown against them, where somebody got mixed up on who the zone they should have been covering. So I mean, we can never put percentages on that happening, but if I'm looking at this from a wide open perspective, I'm avoiding them like the plague. I stay away from Metcalf completely, but hey, that could always be something that's contrarian enough to, if he blows up somehow, which I seriously doubt, you could always.
They can at you on Twitter, and tell the people where they can find you on Twitter. Of course, you're the senior analyst there at Fantasy Points. That was Wes Huber. Much appreciate you joining us and giving us a different perspective than the people normally hear. It's good to hear as far as the breakdowns defensively. We are up against the clock, but please tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Wes Huber NFL, no underscore. Just come at me with any questions. I'm happy to answer. And it's been a pleasure being on the show. I'm very thankful for you guys having me on.
Likewise, I much appreciate you showing up. Thanks to the chat. Stick around. Head Chopper is going to be here. Tambo's going to be here. They're going to be talking more tournaments, showing off the tools here at RG. Hit the link if you guys want to access that tool. $10 off your first month. He was Wes. I was Dean. This was football. Enjoy your Week 16. We're out of here. Holla.
Back at the Fantasy Bar. Christmas is behind us, but the Week 16 slate is on deck, and I'm back with 6 of my favorite plays, including my favorite correlation plays, which games am I stacking, and of course, my favorite play of the week. Who is it? Belly up to the Fantasy Bar and find out. Welcome back to the Fantasy Bar, guys. Week 16 edition, Beers Daily Fantasy 6-pack. Good to be back here in the friendly confines once again with 6 guys fresh off the tap for you on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Hope everybody out there had a great Christmas, great holiday season with your family and friends. But we turn the page here to Week 16. We'll only cover the main slate here, 10 games on the docket, and we're going to get you some winners here with my 6 favorite plays on the slate. As always, before we jump into the plays, guys, do me a favor, click that thumbs up button. That's the tip jar here in the Fantasy Bar. Really helps us out, so I greatly appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and get notified when these videos are coming out. All right, before we talk Week 16, as always, for transparency, we take a look back at Week 15 and a decent week. And we had some hits, we had some misses. Obviously, the injury to Cam Akers did not help things, but solid production pretty much out of the rest of the guys. Everyone found the end zone here and the beast of the week. And no, it's been a couple rough weeks, but Calvin Ridley went nuts there with Julio on the sidelines as we expected. So decent week. All in all, Calvin Ridley, the winner there. But as always, we turn the page here to Week 16, and let's do just that. Let's start at the running back position with Miles Sanders of the Eagles. Now, this matchup with Dallas is one that we're going to continue to attack. We did it last week with Jeff Wilson. He found the end zone, and I think Miles Sanders has big-time upside here in this matchup. We know Dallas is bad against the run, bottom 10 in DVOA, bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed over the season, bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed over the last month. We know Dallas gives up a ton of yards and production to running backs. In fact, over 130 yards per game rushing allowed do the Cowboys give up here, and Sanders has really seized control of this backfield. It was in question. We were seeing way too much Boston Scott here, but 82 and 89% of the backfield snaps over the last 2 weeks for Miles Sanders. And I think a lot of people are going to go to Jalen Hurts. I love Jalen Hurts as well, as much as the next guy, but I think this will be nice leverage off of Jalen Hurts. Sanders has played extremely well since he's entered the starting lineup here. I think you're going to get an ownership discount here in a dream matchup with the Dallas Cowboys. All right, speaking of the Cowboys, let's get some correlation on that side of the ball with wide receiver Amari Cooper. So I saw this price on DraftKings, and it was absolutely floored. Just an absolute steal here for Amari Cooper at only $5,700, even the $6,600 on FanDuel. I don't mind that price at all, and it's nice correlation with Sanders. We expect him to do well. That may force Dallas to throw a little bit more. I think this is going to be a good spot here for Amari Cooper. Coming off a down game, was barely targeted in that last game. I really think we see a bounce back here to more normal Amari Cooper numbers, more targets here. And this Philadelphia secondary is absolutely beat up. They may get Darius Slay back, but I will continue to say, as I have over the years, I think he is highly overrated, and wide receiver ones have absolutely torched this Philadelphia secondary, including some big games against Darius Slay. In fact, they are the worst team against wide receiver ones, according to DVOA, and they're not very good. Let's just be honest. So injuries, no skill there, and too cheap of a price here. Add it all up. Love the spot for Amari Cooper against the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, let's go back to the running back position. Another guy on the higher end I'm liking this week, Austin Eckler of the Chargers. So another guy, ho-hum box score. We get Kalen Ballage kind of stealing touches, stealing goal line touches, and I think this is going to help keep this as a lower owned play with some big time upside. Now, I get it. That's a concern, no doubt, but this matchup I think is really going to unlock a ceiling here for Austin Eckler. The Broncos, 27 in DVOA against the run so far this season. Really been a struggle of late the last few weeks. They've really been torched by opposing running backs. In LA, nice favorable total here, 6th highest total of the 20 teams we have on the slate, plus home favorites, a spot we know we want to take our running backs in here, and a guy we know will be involved in the passing game. Keenan Allen, as of this moment, questionable. If he were to miss this game, that may mean a few more targets here for Austin Eckler. But I love the spot here. I think he's going to check in at very low ownership and going to be a big part of my builds here in week 16. All right, let's get more correlation with the Eckler pick. Let's go to the other side with tight end Noah Fant of the Broncos. So this is one of those games I think is very stackable. It's not the highest total out there, not the game on the marquee, but that game that I think there's a lot of stackable pieces. Or you can just use a skinny stack of Eckler and Fant here, which is what I'll do in the lineups. I don't stack this game, but coming off season highs, targets, receptions last week, 8 catches in that game against Buffalo, and this is a good matchup for him. Chargers have really struggled against the tight end position. In fact, bottom 12 in fantasy points allowed to this position. So Drew Lock, this offense can be frustrating, but Noah Fant, as long as he's healthy, as long as he's out there, which he showed us last week, can be one of the best in the game. Don't have to pay those Kelsey prices, but we still get a nice ceiling here with Noah Fant against the Chargers. All right, let's move on to the quarterback position. We're going to go back to our boy Mitchell Trubisky of the Bears. Now, I know you guys love to give me some flack when I put old Mitch in the 6-pack, but this Bears offense has really started to look good here. 30-plus points in 3 straight games, and I get it. David Montgomery, probably the biggest benefactor and the main reason why this offense is clicking, but let's look at the guy at the helm of this offense, and let's look at the matchup here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And all of these Bears are going to be in play. No issues with David Montgomery with the way he's playing, but Jacksonville's second most fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks, a team that probably does not want to win any more games with Trevor Lawrence looming big here. Now that they sit in the throne with the #1 pick on deck here, I think this team is really going to lay over and die. And as you'd expect, the team that gives up a lot of production to the quarterback position, also not very good against the pass. And that shows in their DVOA rank 32nd in the league, dead last against the pass here. Trubisky is cheap. I think there's upside here. And I love the spot against this terrible Jacksonville defense. All right, it's time to take a look at my favorite play for week 16. But before we do that, guys, we're going to continue our Beast of the Week contest. Absolutely free to enter. All you have to do is get in the comment section right below the video and guess fantasy points on DraftKings for my favorite play. Closest guess will win themselves either a free week of Rotogrinders Premium or a free Rotogrinders t-shirt. Let's wrap up week 16, my favorite play. You know, Mass, the Beast of the Week. All right, Beast time. We owe you one more wide receiver, and I think you know where we're going here. We're going to correlate with our boy Trubisky. We're going with wide receiver Allen Robinson, this week's Beast of the Week. So Robinson, we know, one of the best in the games. You get a solid floor. You get upside. In fact, 70 more receiving yards in every game this season except for 3 games. I mean, that is consistency. Also has multiple 30-point outings this season as well. And Jacksonville, as you'd expect, we talked about how bad they are against quarterbacks. It only makes sense that they're not good against wide receivers. Bottom 10 in that category as well.
What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka Totag and Tambo. Back for another edition of the Sunday Lineup HQ show. Going to get you guys all set up here, find out what's going on in the NFL Week 16. And I'm excited. It's a big week. I know you guys are excited in the chat. Got the $1 Million Man. I know what you said yesterday, Chop. I was lucky enough to talk to you yesterday on the other show, and you said, hey, what have you done for me lately? You already told the chat, man. We just had Dean. We had Wes Huber on. These guys went through some stuff, and now I've got you here, man. So congratulations again, and excited to have you on.
Yeah, man, glad to be here. I saw it on the schedule several weeks ago. I was like, all right, this is going to be good stuff right here. I caught the last show. I'm a fan of Wes. I like his work. I think I like what he does. I like what he says. So I'm always down to listen to Wes. Now, following Dean though, come on now. This is the easiest paycheck in the business, man. We look like $1 million out here following Dino, right? So, I think we're going to be good, man. It's going to be a good day. I think it's going to be fun. There's a lot of good plays on the board. I feel good about today.
I agree. We may look like it. One of us has it, one of us doesn't, but I'm going to try and get it. And I'll tell you some good news. I know you don't like talking about yourself, but I don't mind it. And last week we did our Saturday show. I had a nice little LPGA Sunday. Yesterday, we did our little show in the morning. I had a nice little NBA bounce back night, pretty good night in the NBA. So I'm excited to be on here with you, man. There's lots more money to win today on Sunday. So let's get right into it, man. How we do it. We're going to start at running back, right? But before we get into that, talk to me about just sort of your overview of the slate, what you see. And then, you've been into this game for a while, MME, stuff like that. You're in these big milli makers, these large field tournaments. So what's just your grand overview of this slate before we get into it play by play?
Yeah, my initial thought here this morning after I've narrowed down some of the players, and I'll wait for the inactives and narrow it down for the last time. But my initial thought is, man, there's a lot of good plays on this slate. I don't even know how I'm gonna get these guys, condensed into my lineups. I play three running backs on let's say FanDuel. I play 3 running backs. I don't know how I'm gonna get down to 3, man, because I like several of these guys, and we'll talk about them, but. There's a lot, man. We're going to have to narrow it down somehow, but I like a lot of plays this morning.
Yeah, and we'll get into it, guys. And just so everybody following along the chat, if it's your first time here showing up, that's great. We appreciate the support. Producer Devin will drop a link in to show you guys how you can get access to Lineup HQ. Get yourself $10 off your first month. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. We'll get that stuff out of the way. Inactives will be dropping here shortly. So as those come out, we'll be all over them. But there's some things we already know about, Chop, just riding into it, and we'll start at running back and just sort of talk about things as we go along. At the top with the chalk, we've got David Montgomery, your boy Kirkwood, do the turning takes pod with them. He says this is yours and his thing. He says you stole it, but he says he's electric. He's electric when he gets the ball in his hand. So talking about 37% owned David Montgomery on a 4-game tear. Mind you, the first 3 games were against 30, 31, and 32 in the league. But he did show something last week, and then Kamara put 6 on them. So I don't know if he did. What's your thoughts on Montgomery here at this high ownership?
Yeah, Kirk. I shout out to Kirk. I have to give some shout outs this morning. Some guys, not happy with me. They say I've been stealing their shtick, but Kirk was the first one a few weeks ago. Man, he said the kid is electric, and he is. He's a good player. He's a real good player. The offensive line's playing better. He's just getting the workload. I know it's a high ownership, and this is where I'm torn on this one because I like Montgomery. I certainly like Montgomery. I like his teammate a lot too. I like Allen Robinson a lot. And I would have been more on the Allen Robinson side of this had it not been for that big questionable tag. And I know some of that stuff is just all smoke and mirrors, and just, you know what I mean? Like, is he really hurt, Allen Robinson? It's enough to make me lean towards Montgomery now more than Allen Robinson. So, yeah, it's chalky, but you know what? You can have some chalk in your lineup and still win big tournaments. That's not. That point has been disproven. You don't have to have a lineup full of non-chalk. So he's in there, man. He's in my top 3 for sure. So Montgomery, I love the matchup. I love everything about what he's doing right now. So, and in Chicago, I think you mentioned either pre-show or here just a minute ago, but Chicago's fighting for the playoffs. So they're going all out here. They're not hesitating one bit. So Montgomery's up there, man. He's one of the top 2 or 3 plays at this position for me.
Yeah, the Jets gave the Jags a little volley there last week, and they're planning on spiking it and taking this Trevor Lawrence pick too. So I don't think it's going to be a problem here for Chicago. And we've seen in the past, guys, Trubisky, Montgomery, and a wide receiver, pass catcher can get there. We got Cole Kmet, who we're going to talk about when we get to tight end, a little bit of flop lag. People liked him last week. still was out there running the routes, and now we get a chance to go back to him pretty cheap. So I'm with you on Montgomery. There's other guys here, Chop. There's Eckler. There's, Melvin Gordon. I think just the opportunity here, we finally get Lindsey out, a chance for him to go on his own in a revenge game, a little bit of a smash spot opportunity here for him. And then you've got, Lev Bell. Looks like Darrell Henderson, has come down a little bit from what people were thinking. He's just down at 16% now. And then we'll get to the Cleveland guys. But anybody else here that stands out to you just off the top of your head, or somebody you wanted to talk about?
I mean, you mentioned some of them. Melvin Gordon, he's going to get volume now. We always like volume out of running back, so Gordon's on there. Henderson's fallen down because, these other guys have emerged throughout the week. So obviously he's kind of flying under the radar there. He's not a bad play. There's some speculation out there in some of the guys I talked to. Some of them, it's actually a very polarizing guy. Giovanni Bernard. Some guys really like him. It's a great matchup. Houston's terrible. Some guys think last week was just a one-hit wonder against Pittsburgh with that big game he had, and that there's no way they would play him. So, who knows how that's going to play out. There's another guy out there. We'll talk about Cleveland. I think that's big. But the other guy that I'm really, really high on this week, I'm trying to balance him in my lineups because I like his quarterback a lot too. And that's Miles Sanders. So yeah. I got some Miles Sanders love this week. There's parts of his game I don't like. He does lose. He's losing targets with everybody back. Wes mentioned that on the other show. He loses targets with all the wide receivers healthy, okay? He loses some carries because his quarterback is a running quarterback. But he's still getting the vast majority of the snaps and the vast majority of the touches in the backfield. This is a prime matchup. If Hurts kind of takes a step back running the ball and defers to Miles Sanders, Sanders could be the breakout guy this week. So I have a lot of love for Miles Sanders.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. Actually, I just looked at my exposures. That's sort of the benefit of being on this show. I'll give you where I'm at right now. I always save a few lineups for after, especially got Chop on this week. I thought I'll take some notes here like you guys and maybe get some special stuff in there. But Miles Sanders is in a spot. You want to talk about electric with the ball in hands. We joked about Montgomery earlier. I think he's another one of these guys. Miles Sanders, when he gets the ball, he can do things with it. We've talked about this in the past couple shows with Hurts in there. Look at guys with Lamar Jackson. I know that they can steal some love away from them, but running quarterbacks make it easier on these guys, especially a guy like Sanders, who if you get Hurts out in the flats, has to check down all of a sudden because guys are coming at him. You get it to Sanders in open space, that could be a problem for a Dallas defense. No, sorry, I know it's your squad, but yeah, definitely a spot that he can take that thing right to the house. And there's some other guys that you can run it back with on the other side. When we get to quarterback, wide receiver, definitely some good plays, I think, over on that Dallas side. You mentioned Cleveland. We'll get to there in a second. The other one you mentioned was Bernard. I'm one of the guys that it's definitely a polarizing spot. I just think at 8% ownership, I have to go there a little bit. I've always liked this matchup against Houston all season. People have been just beating it up. I think that it's a good spot. See my guy. One guy I like to see in Lineup HQ, just so you guys know, you get these little filters. Eric Beimfor, real sharp guy, does a lot of articles out here, does the podcast with Blender, another guy that you guys want to follow. And he's on him as well. So I kind of liked seeing that. That was just an extra added bonus. But we talked about him on the Tourney Takes pod. I think Kirkwood came around a little bit on him. So I'm feeling good about the Bernard spot. Talk to me about these Cleveland running backs, though. 1, 2, both, none. Where are you at with Nick Chubb and with our guy Kareem Hunt with all these COVID-19 issues that they're having over there in Cleveland?
Yeah. So the first question, one or two, like, man, if there weren't as many good running backs, I'd say you may be able to play two of them in the same lineup on a main slate. And I usually reserve that just for showdowns. But here's the thing about Cleveland, like in the NBA, when a bunch of guys get ruled out, you can play like the entire starting five from a team because we're looking for minutes in the NBA, right? And if we're going to get all those minutes out of this, a certain set of guys, you play them. Well, in the NFL, it's not minutes, it's touches, right? So now we've got a lot of touches for Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins, and the rest of those wide receivers that are ruled out. And it's not going to be spread out between these new wide receivers that are getting called up from the practice squad. That's not going to happen. You'll get a couple targets for some of those guys. The beneficiaries here of the touches are going to be guys like Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, the tight ends, maybe Marvin Hall sneaks in there too. But like it's going to be a condensed touch tree here in this game for Cleveland. So a guy like Kareem Hunt could get 7 or 8 targets because he may be their best receiver, period, right now with the stuff going on. He may get 8 targets, and if he falls into the end zone on a running play too, which he'll maybe get a shot at, and he's going to be massive. And I just love Nick Chubb in this game in general. I love Nick Chubb to just grind and pound and get his 100-yard bonus pretty easy. And if he gets in the end zone twice, you've had a great day. And I think 2 touchdowns is a really legitimate goal for him today.
Yeah, I really like it personally. I think the other thing too is a lot of people are looking to make things happen with this passing game just because everyone goes down. They start looking for it. You mentioned Marvin Hall. I saw Adam Levitan post out the shower narrative with Willie's guy you can roster for min price over on FanDuel, the him and Baker have connection from back in the day, etc. So I think it's interesting to look for that stuff, but you said it best. I do want to target the Jets in their secondary because it's been horrible. But when you've got a squad like Cleveland here, just go after getting the W. Why not just run the ball all day? Hunt gets out there more. He's another guy that's just awesome when he's got the ball in hand. So we'll drop that electric word for now. And you've got also too the tight ends who you mentioned. These are options that Baker already loves and goes to. They're healthy. So why does he need to go all these different ways? I could understand Marvin Hall, like you said, to plug him in as the last guy in for a value play. That makes sense to me. But other than that, not much stands out there on the Cleveland side. Any love for Chris Carson? That guy was a little bit interesting to me this week. He came up on a couple shows. They like to, they haven't really been letting Russ cook, if you will, for the last few weeks now. And they like to run the ball. It's getting later in the season. Any thoughts on Chris Carson there?
Yeah, I liked him a little bit more earlier in the week. I just think there's so much out there now. It's hard for me to envision putting him on a lot of lineups right now. I've got a lot of guys ahead of him on my list. But with that being said, he's on the short list of guys who could really have a big game today. So he remains in the player pool. It's just at a certain point, you got to draw a line on how many guys you're going to play, man. And it just doesn't seem like he's making the cut on a lot of lineups for me. But he's in the player pool, man.
Yeah, I say it every week too. Running back is the spot I'm way more comfortable being, with the chalk, overweight, whatever you want to call it. Like I really don't care about these spots a lot because oftentimes they are that way for a reason. There's special circumstances, et cetera, et cetera. So, I like getting different and unique with the stacks. I like looking at where can I leverage some of these spots. We'll talk about, the chat wants to talk about Justin Herbert. I'm going to talk about him. I think it's definitely a good spot here. Eckler's 35% owned. I guess that's the last two here, and we'll move on. Chop to quarterback and some stacks and mixing it together. But Eckler with 35% ownership and then Bell with almost 20% ownership. I'll start. But one thing with Bell for me, the only thing about Bell is that I don't mind him in something like cash. I get it. They've got the team total. They're at home. Everyone's on the pass game. Like that all jives and makes sense to me. The problem I have is that like CEH, it wasn't that there was just other guys there that had me worried. They just weren't using him enough. They do have so many weapons. Now, the one thing is today that, came out last night or sort of near the end of day yesterday was with Tyreek Hill and nursing a little bit of a hamstring and monitoring him and being careful with him. We will talk more about that and we'll see what comes out. But, what's your thoughts on Eckler and Bell just to move us along and we'll get to quarterback?
Eckler is another guy I felt a lot better about earlier in the week. Now we're moving on to more players in my pool. More things have opened up, and it's a little bit tougher. And, I love his passing game work, so maybe DraftKings, he's the guy. But he's losing a lot of that good running back touch, that good those carries. He's losing it, man. He's losing a lot of that action. So I don't know. I'm not as high on him probably as the ownership out there. So. And then Le'Veon Bell, another polarizing guy, man. There's people who say, the guy's just not that good anymore. He's kind of washed. And what do I want a $5,800 running back for who's kind of washed? And KC's a pass first team, and it's not even close. But then on the other side, you see this argument that you got a starting running back who's going to get the majority of the snaps for a team with a team total that's the highest on the day, I believe. It's in the 31.5 range. At some point, they're going to get down there around the goal line, you would think, and he's got a chance. He's going to get some opportunities to get it in. If he can take advantage of it, could have a big day. So he's an interesting figure. It's a good price tag on him and makes you really think about it.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it already. We will get to quarterback, I promise. But Lev Bell is going to be the Fournette, where last week when it was, he's trash, everyone's dogging him on Twitter because he can't do anything. And here's the thing, especially if Tyreek's limited or something, you're going to have Mecole Hardman and guys like this PIs all day in that end zone. And then what do we got? That little 1 yard run in, and Bell's going to have 2 touchdowns from the one. So I couldn't fully get away from him. He's definitely a guy that I was on earlier to start the week. And then as it went on, I'm going to come in underweight. It's just the way it is because too many other guys, like you said, and just too many other thoughts and processes that I'm putting together. Can't play them all. So that's sort of where I'm at there. We'll move over to quarterback, and everyone wants to know, we'll get Chop to put together a little mini conviction plays tab at the end. If you stick around to the end, we'll get him to give his, top 3-4 plays of the day, tie it all together. If you listen as we go along, I'm sure you'll find them. One person asked Chop head-to-head, Eckler versus Montgomery. I'm with Montgomery. What about you?
Yeah, Montgomery.
Okay. And guys, the inactives and actives are starting to come into the chat. Brandon Powell, Jack Doyle, Anthony McFarland, CJ Procyse. I don't want to discount any of these, but these just aren't ones to me that matter a whole lot. If I see something that stands out, we'll absolutely call it out. But I think this is a spot to just keep it rolling here. Got to talk about Mahomes. We're moving over to quarterback. As I promised, Chop, we've got Patrick Mahomes at the top, $8,500. Great spot. They're gonna, what's the joke of there? Almost 100% chance to win this game, I think. But the 17% ownership and then ways to get different. What are your thoughts just on Mahomes using him? And then, is there a way to use him differently in your mind that you can get different than everybody else who's using him? Because lots are on him this week. Yeah,
they're on him because, the general look of the quarterback pool this week on the main slate is not particularly good. So, that's what's driving up that ownership, even at that price tag. Can you get different with him? Probably not. It is what it is. You just got to get different elsewhere. But he's clearly he's the best play on the board at this position. So, I don't know. It's tough to get away from that. But then again, it's the quarterback position, man. If he doesn't run one in, if he's strictly passing, you can still make up those points elsewhere for cheaper. With some of these other guys, that's just the way it's going to be. The running quarterbacks are the ones that really run and separate themselves from the field when they have a great game. Great game out of Mahomes, maybe 4 or 5 touchdowns, but we can get 3 or 4 touchdowns from somebody else. So, in the GPPs, you certainly get away from him in cash games this week. If you're playing cash, you're gonna have to probably bite the bullet and play Mahomes.
Yeah, I love them in cash games. You just have so much value out there and the money there to spend. It's the safety, the upside, everything is there. It's another thing, people always worry about the blowout or worry about Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, he's got so many other weapons, and Tyreek Hill's going to give it a go. It sounds like they just say they're going to monitor him. You have no idea what that means, right? We've seen it plenty of times where they're monitoring snap counts and they decide to use him on the one breakout 80-yard touchdown, and then he sits, like something like that. And then also too, as far as the blowout stuff goes, Patrick Mahomes can get there in a half. We saw Brady get there in a half yesterday, no problem, and then just take a seat, and plenty of points on the board from him. So you can definitely see that out of Patrick Mahomes. Who else do you like here then? Like this, it's always pretty spread out at quarterback. Maybe you can talk about, tying it into some of the stacks or guys that you like at wide receiver even, just as far as efficiency goes. But I think, there's a lot of other guys here that are still useful. I tend to pay down more often and then just fit the stacks in and jam some of these running backs for what we've got. But there's value at every position, Chop. So what's your thoughts on the rest of these guys at the quarterback position?
Yeah, typically I like to pay down at QB, but today I look and I say, well, there's not much to pay down for. Like the best, cheapest quarterback that I would play is Trubisky, but I'm not going to play him with David Montgomery, and I like David Montgomery. So that kind of like takes him off a lot of teams for me. But going from top to bottom for me, it looks something like Lamar Jackson's always a threat. It's a team that's trying to get into the playoffs, so they'll be pushing Lamar as hard. And I don't mind the matchup. It's a tougher defense than it was last week, but that just means that he's more active farther into the game. Lamar is, so I don't mind Lamar this week. Ever since the injuries in the receiving or Will Fuller and those boys got wiped out, I have not been on Deshaun Watson. I have not liked him with his receiving core up until now. Now's the day I go back to Deshaun. I've faded him for the last several weeks because I didn't think he had the pass catchers to really it just didn't do it for me. But now we're at this matchup. It's a good matchup. He's getting Brandon Cooks back. I like Deshaun Watson quite a bit today in this matchup. After that, then there's a big drop off for me. There's Herbert. You can play some Herbert. You can play Herbert every week. I don't mind Herbert. It's tough to pair him with somebody, though. We're talking about stacks. Like, there's so many guys. Keenan Allen's not going to play today, probably. I haven't seen. We won't find out till later, but it doesn't look like Keenan. Keenan was the guy you want to play with him. Now he's just going to spread it around. So I like Herbert, but who are you going to stack him with? That's a tough call. And then I guess the last bigger one would be Jalen Hurts. I like Miles Sanders. I don't want to play those two guys together. Okay, I don't want to do that, but I think Jalen Hurts on his own, and I don't have to stack him. Just like my lineup last week, I didn't stack him with anybody. I don't think you have to stack Jalen with anybody, because he's going to get, when he has his big game, it's going to be via the ground. He's looked like he's going to spread it around. Around the end zone, he's going to target Greg Ward. All over the other field, he's going to give some targets to Jalen Reagor. And last week we saw a lot of targets for Alshon Jeffrey. So he's a spread around guy, man. I don't know if you even want to take a chance in pairing, but I like Jalen Hurts as a standalone quarterback.
Yeah, I love what you just said there. I'm similar to that. Jalen Hurts is definitely a guy you can play naked out there. I think, one interesting one, which we can tie into wide receivers, Deshaun Jackson is coming back at, I think, the stone minimum. So that's kind of interesting. He's sort of that one play guy, if you could see it happen. But like you said, he spreads it around so much, it's tough to get it right. One thing I would make sure for sure in my lineups anyway, is that I'm only really stacking them up one way. If I'm even stacking them, it's with a Goddard or it's with an Ertz or something like that, where Reagor. I don't really love the triple stack. I might have one or two in 100 plus lineups, but I'm mostly going with him with one guy. And we'll get to tight end and talk about that. I think it is a little bit more interesting than just what everybody might think. I'm with you. I've come around a little bit on Lamar only because of how high the ownership is on Mahomes and just trying to get a little bit unique. And I like what you said there. I'm obviously a Ravens fan. Those that follow me know I stick with them. It's a must-win situation. Love that the Giants are a little bit tougher. I still think the Ravens get this game here, but if they put up even a little bit more of a fight, just means we get to see more of Lamar Jackson. And then no one also is talking about Mark Andrews at tight end. The boys asked me on the Turning Takes pod this week, was I on him? I'm on him. I think it's a good spot. The Giants used to be that, the pass funnel that we would love against the tight end. It hasn't, quite got as bad as it was before, but it's still a good spot. And obviously Lamar likes going to him. So I think that's a good little pairing. Again, a guy like Hurts, where kind of, the same, but a little bit different, where you don't need to pair him up. But if you are going to pair him up, there's really usually only one guy, and it's Mark Andrews. So if you're going to pair him, it's pretty easy to put that together. I do like that. I like Herbert. It looks like Keenan Allen won't go, or unless they surprise us in the afternoon. But I like Mike Williams. I think Jalen Guyton is a guy you could use. I think here's another thing too, and we'll get to tight end, I said, but we're using Parham this week. Everyone wants the XFL superstar, Donald Parham. It gets played out for sure, but the facts are, I think the guy's 6'8" and 240. I mean, this guy's a beast. He's an obvious red zone threat on DraftKings at that price. He really doesn't have to do much at all. He's a target anytime, third down, whenever they need him. And I think that when you have a play like that, where people are like, but that could be bad chalk. It's not that I'm looking to double down, but I'm looking for a way to get a little bit different. And I think most people are using Parham with Gordon as a secondary stack. And I don't hate that. I get it with Melvin Gordon on the other side and Parham and Tim Patrick, or a guy like that, or Judy that we can get to later. But I don't mind stacking them up with Herbert, like a Herbert, Williams, Parham, and then run it back with Patrick just to be different, or a Judy, because I think most people are going with Gordon. You can definitely do that as well. But I just think that's a spot you could go. I'm with you on Mitch Trubisky. One guy, a couple other guys here I like, Chop, but give me your thoughts. Matt Ryan, I always like going the opposite side of a game that's popular, right? We still have options with him. We know it's going to be pretty condensed, to be honest. You've got Ridley, Gage, and Hurst. I know that's three guys, but it's not much they want to do at running back, it seems. They are very likely to be down in this game. He's much cheaper than Patrick Mahomes. Can you get behind any Matt Ryan love?
He's an interesting one for sure, man. The thing about Ryan was he wasn't playing well. And then last week, he had a really good game. Typically, he loses a lot of luster for me when he doesn't have all of his weapons. And obviously, he's down Julio Jones. And the other drawback to me on Matt Ryan is, he's outdoors on the road. And it's going to be, I don't know if it's cold or not, but it's Kansas City in December. So it's probably going to be chilly with a little bit of, he's an indoors guy, man. That's where he's thrived. So those are drawbacks for him. But at the same time, here we are playing from behind virtually the whole game. So it's hard not to imagine he puts up some nice statistics, if not for anything else but garbage time. and he's got a good price, like a great price tag for him. So he's definitely on the radar. And in that price range, he's probably the best play for me in that price range because, like I said, I'm not going to play Trubisky when I have a lot of David Montgomery on those teams. So, So Matt Ryan falls. I just think the garbage time is going to offset those other big factors. Now, with that being said, the guy could go out there and drop another 14-point DraftKings game. That's what he, on the road like this, he could really be bad. But I'll take it that he's going to get the full garbage time run and find a way to put up his 302 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's more where I like to go with it. The other thing I know is a little bit unique, but large field stuff I personally like doing it is I'll run something like a Matt Ryan with a Kelsey and say a Hardman, and I'll just, the idea is now I can get more studs in other positions with that savings and hope that he just can keep pace points per dollar with a guy like Mahomes, and then the other guys do the work for me, whereas Mahomes lineups likely with Kelsey will have to punt more, and also they're not as unique. So you're doubling down in a way that you can try and get around that. So I will always look for situations. It's like you said, the risk has already been taken when you put Matt Ryan in your lineup. So if he pops up 14 or 12 points, wouldn't surprise me, but the lineup was dead anyway. So we move on to the next one and hope we've got something else out there that can do some damage. Last couple guys I want to talk about. One I'll throw over to you here in a second, but I don't mind Drew Lock. I think, again, opposite side of that game we just talked about with Herbert, but it just feels stackable, right? I've got Tim Patrick, who I've mentioned. I've got Jerry Jeudy. If everyone's going to be on Melvin Gordon, I like the Melvin Gordon spot, but I also think he can catch passes. So there's other ways you can go here, but I think in the non-Gordon lineups for me, I do like a Lock, a Fant, a Jeudy. Tim Patrick can have some big games, surprisingly enough. So I think this is a spot that we could see some back and forth. It's a little bit of a battle, right? These two guys, it's kind of fun to see them play back and forth here, something we'll get to see a lot over the years. So I think, this could be a good spot for Drew Lock at 5K straight. And then, of course, I got to get your Cowboys take and Andy Dalton. I think he's getting a little love, and it's because look at the price of his receivers, man. You got Cooper, Gallup, Lamb. Do you like some Lamb, Chop? Do you like Andy Dalton? Do you like this little mix and match here? What are you doing with your boy Andy Dalton this week?
Andy Dalton is not in my player pool, man. I'm not going. I do like some of his targets. So it's interesting like that. Like, I just don't think the upside is there for Dalton himself. For his wide receivers, I think maybe one of them, like if Darius Slay isn't 100%, maybe Cooper can have a good game. If Slay is doing well, if Slay is healthy, then maybe CeeDee Lamb can do well. Maybe, and now Gallup is like that dark horse that everybody's talking about, but they're not talking that loud about him, because they're trying to keep it under the radar. But Gallup's getting a lot of love this week. So I think one of those guys could have a good game. I just don't think 2 or 3 of them have a good game. So Andy Dalton's not going to have that high upside game. Like, I don't think he's top 20 points this year. And this is not a terrible matchup, but I just don't think there's upside for Dalton. So while I'm going to keep, a couple of his wide receivers in my player pool, Dalton is not going to be there. And this is coming from a Cowboys fan, man. So who
so
knows?
It's all biased, is what you're saying.
I'm biased.
Yeah,
maybe I'm biased, man. Maybe I am biased. So, but I just don't see the upside. What's his upside? I need I know I can get by with a good lineup. I can get by with a 20-point quarterback game, assuming nobody goes, Lamar Jackson doesn't rush for 150 yards and a couple rushing touchdowns. I can still probably get by with a 20-point QB game, but I probably want a little bit more out of that position. And I don't think Dalton's going to give me too much more than that.
Yeah, I don't hate that. And you already liked Hurts. So if you want your pieces, it's kind of like, we talked about this as well with Kirkwood and Killa B, where it was, we like these Cincinnati pieces, and we're about to transition to wide receivers. So this is a good segue, but we don't really love getting over on the Cincinnati on Allen or whatever at quarterback. So we said, why not just use some Deshaun Watson, go that route, and then you've got some Cincy guys you can bring back. And it's sort of the same thing here. We like I think you'll like, you got to like some Cooper, Lamb, Gallup. These prices for these guys are awesome, but the way to get there is probably just go Hurts. And again, you don't need to pair up Hurts. You can go Hurts with the Dallas guy. It still correlates. It goes together. Hurts has a good game. They're bringing it back that way. Let them do the talking and not need Dalton to go off for 25 for you, because that's a tough ask. So we'll move over to wide receiver here, man. The chat wants to talk about Ito Smith. There, we mentioned him. That's as far as I'm going with it. But, anything here at wide receiver at the top that you see as far as ownership goes, Tyreek came down a little bit with the news. Ridley has just been balling out with Julio out, so I get it. That's why I kind of like that play with Ryan, because look at this ownership on Ridley, but it was only like 8% on Ryan. So, if Ridley has a good game, it's likely attached to a Ryan good game. Doesn't always happen that way, but then you got Gage down here as well, I mentioned. So I don't hate that. And then the KC guys in the middle. So talk to me about some of these higher owned wide receivers and then where you're going with your stuff.
Yeah, so Tyreek on paper looks good, but the injury scares me a lot. It scares me off of him, and the fact that I don't think that they have to have all their weapons 100% on the go today to win this game. So maybe, that upside that we know Tyreek has, maybe we don't see that upside. Maybe if he comes out in the first quarter and catches a 70-yard touchdown, it looks good. But if he doesn't capitalize the rest of the game, it's not bad. You can still survive that if you faded him especially at these price tags. So even though he's in my player pool, I'm a little bit hesitant to pull the trigger on him. Ridley is a guy I guess I'm warming up to as of later in the week here, but I didn't like a lot of things about this matchup. There's a piece of me that thinks Matt Ryan could struggle in this spot right here. So if he struggles, Calvin Ridley may struggle. So the problem I have with Ridley is on my initial build, I had so much money left over at to do one more wide receiver that I ended up going with Ridley because there's so much value out there with the lower wide receivers and some of the other spots, tight ends and everything else, that I had the money to get up to Ridley. So that's it's kind of a conundrum there. Right now, Ridley's sitting in my lineup, even though I'm not even all that sold on him. So, but I'll trust the projections and think that he has a good game here. So he's on the map. Allen Robinson was a guy who was popping to me earlier in the week. I don't like that he popped up with an injury, but he would have been my number one wide receiver target had he not come on that injured tag later in the week. So if that injury is fake news, Allen Robinson I think blows up today. If it's a legit soft tissue injury or what have you, then he may struggle. But I'm gonna keep with his Allen Robinson love. Those are my top three guys in that higher price range.
Yeah, and I'm with you on Allen Robinson. That's one I've learned the hard way many a times, taking this guy out. If it burns me, it burns me, but I just don't take it out anymore. I just leave it because same thing happens in PGA when I'm playing golfers. Jason Day is hurt at the Pro-Am. Next thing you know, he's winning the tournament. It's like the same thing here. Allen Robinson's a warrior. He's $1,300 less than Hill. They're in a must-win position versus Kansas City is not. Like Kansas City is very likely to win this game. So, I'm just going to play it off of that in my mind. It's 9,000. One of the nice things about lineup HQ here is you can put your total own projections in. You can get to that. But I'm just saying, even on the fly, if you see something and you're like, well, the thing about this is that, Hill's still going to pop up in lineups. I want to dock him a little bit. You can do that. You can just plug that in there and change it. If you think the ownership projections are wrong, you can make them your own for when you're balancing within the filters and whatnot. So I think that that's interesting. And for me, I think a lot of projection systems out there right now are pretty much keeping Hill where he's at. And it just depends on how you feel about it. I just, I can see it happen early. He gets there and everyone's sort of victory lapping, and then it's over because they just don't need him anymore and they just move on. They definitely want to have him for the playoffs. He's been a guy for them that has been a lot more than what people see him as. Everyone always sees Hill as this one-hit wonder, must-have, big play. That's it. He's been doing a lot more for them, right? He's been very good. They get him the ball in short space. He can take it to the house. So I think that's interesting, but I'm not going to be super high on him this week because there is still ownership attached as well, too. So I'm with you on Ridley. It's just sort of a product of the spot of how he's been doing. The only thing worries me about Ridley is just a gut feel. And it's the last time he was this high owned or the top owned wide receiver at this money was that Island game in Showdown when he literally put up a 0 and Russell Gage came out and dropped like 16 or 18 or something. And everyone just couldn't believe it. He literally played the whole game and put up a 0. So I don't believe we're going to see that today, but it just can be a little bit frustrating at times. That's all narrative and gut based. So don't take too much on that. Just do your thing. We move down. What about these Rams wide receivers or the Seahawks wide receivers? Nobody's talking about the Seahawks, by the way, this week.
The Rams, I'm always a Rams guy. It's one or the other. It's Cup or Woods. This week for me, it's Robert Woods. I think it's a Robert Woods week. So take that for what you
was last week a Robert Woods week, if I recall correctly?
It was definitely more Robert Woods than Cooper Kupp, that's for sure. And Robert did enough. I think it's another good Robert week. They have their matchups, man. I think this is the better matchup for Robert. It just is going to be a matchup based thing usually. And so I like Robert this week. Seattle, here's where I could get into some trouble because DK Metcalf at this cheap ownership is very much, a guy people are going to target. I think, and I get it, but man, I'm not going against it. So, and Tyler Lockett has been bad for the most part this year. He's had a couple of blow up spots, but I like Tyler Lockett a lot more in this game. I like the Seattle offense to do something. I don't think they just sit back and get ran over like they did the last time these two teams played. So somebody's going to get there, and I don't think it's going to be DK. So I'm on Tyler Lockett this week. Probably, well, I know for a fact, much more than the field in this low ownership.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's a good call. And the price tag's right. And he's just one of those guys that you could absolutely see break a slate. He's had 40, 56 points, two good showings this season in that sense. I know it's been boom or bust, but that's what you want to break the slate, right? You want that guy in your lineup if there's an opportunity. So I think that's certainly a good play there. Deontay Johnson is a guy that stands out to me a little bit. I think he'll be a little bit more popular as we go along. Again, if you see something like that and you want to change it, you can do it as you go along here. But I just think guys have been talking about him enough that I could see him being out there. What about your Watson stacks? I want to talk more about that because it sounds like you're in on Deshaun Watson. There's Brandon Cooks, there's Kike Kute, there's Chad Hansen, and there's, Akins. Let's say that's your run. David Johnson we didn't talk about, but any of those guys you want to mix and match with your guy Deshaun Watson there?
Well, I'll say this. Brandon Cooks, I have not played him since the Will Fuller, news broke here several weeks ago. I haven't played Brandon Cooks. He's been chalky several times during that time frame. He's been injured. He's done what Brandon Cooks does. He's disappeared a lot. I have not played him, but I am on him today. And this is not an easy matchup against this. Cincinnati has a really nice cornerback that shuts down number one wide receivers pretty good. He's pretty good against him, but I think Brandon Cooks is good enough to leave his mark in this game. So I'm on Brandon Cooks. And this is the first time it's not like I'm keep doubling down on Brandon Cooks. This is the first time I'm going to play Brandon Cooks in about a month and a half. So I think Brandon Cooks is the guy I want to stack with Deshaun Watson. With that being said, you could always get a QT game. Chad Hansen is well back for me, well further back than those top two guys. And I've already, with all the tight end value out there and the tight ends out there, I've eliminated Jordan Akins. So we're not worried about that in the stack. But I think Brandon Cooks could be a guy that wins a GPP today with that Watson stack if it breaks right.
Yeah, and you can use just another spot, right? We got Watson on the ground. He does rush it, so you can have just him and Cooks, pair it up, and then pick your favorite Cincy guy. We'll talk about Cincy guys in a minute, but first let's talk about those Dallas guys. We hinted at them earlier, just that even if it's just a play to run it back with Cooper, Lamb, Gallup, maybe you want to rank them for the people. I think that's a good way to do it, and just maybe something that stands out to you if it's one guy.
Man, this is you can get torn on this one right here because Amari Cooper has struggled. Cooper has struggled with Darius Slay. All right, so what's going to happen with Darius Slay? Typically, I probably wouldn't want Amari Cooper right here, but I'm looking at Slay. He's been limping off the field in the last couple of games, not playing, on the injured list, and the secondary in general for Philly has been injured and not good. So what's going to give here? Is it the matchup with Slay, or is it the secondary so beat up that Cooper can take advantage of it? I don't know. I guess I'm going to lean towards Cooper here. I just think that Slay hasn't looked particularly healthy in the last few weeks. So I'm going to be on Amari Cooper here. That's my number one on the Cowboys, followed by CD, followed by Gallup. I think most people are looking at it and saying Cooper's going to struggle with the matchup. So that's why Gallup vaults ahead for them. But that's why Gallup's the third for me, is because I don't think Cooper struggles as much. Wouldn't be surprising, because when he gets locked down, man, and he disappears. And it is Andy Dalton, quarterback in here. This isn't Dak Prescott. So he could definitely disappear in this game, but I don't think he disappears because of the matchup. I think if he disappears, it's because of the quarterback play. So I'm going to rank Amari number one amongst the Cowboys.
Yeah, we're close. I would swap in Lamb for me, and only because what you just said with Dalton. The thing about it is the slot matchup. I'm not expecting the double dip again. Obviously, we got lucky there last week with the Lamb take it to the house, punt return touchdown. But I think the idea is, that's an extra added bonus piece. They could use Lamb for some interesting things, some end arounds, different routes, things they can take. But Dalton just, hasn't seemed to make Cooper what he is lately. And like you said, if Slay shows up, I'm not really that scared of him. I'm not big on that too often. We talked yesterday for our video you guys can follow up on tonight and watch this afternoon for the Sunday Night Football Showdown game, the premium members, I'll get producer Devin to drop the link in the chat again for you guys, $10 off your first month. We talk about a guy like Jair Alexander, who maybe frightens us a little bit in spots in certain times, but I don't know if Slay, he hasn't been healthy, and it's not someone I'm super scared of. So I get the Cooper take fully. I kind of like Lamb there. You mentioned some stuff earlier with Kute, could obviously get involved in those stacks, but we're with Cooks. I'm with you there. Gage is a guy I like. Want to talk about 5K and under. Before that, real quick, somebody asked a question in the chat. How much money are you comfortable leaving on the table? They said, I got $3,000 left on the FanDuel Sunday Millie. Too much, or is that?
Yeah, that's too much, man. That's too much, guy. I mean, like in Showdown, the shorter the slate, the more money you can leave on the table, and it's fine. When you get in a main slate like this and there's 10 games, yeah, man, I usually don't leave more than 1,000 on the table. Like 900, 4 figures left on the table is too much for me. 3 figures and under, 900 and under, I feel fine with. But yeah, there's a reason why the salaries are the way they are usually. It's because, you can always upgrade your lineup somewhere. 3,000 is too much. Let's put it like, for me, 3 figures or less.
I love the rule, right? The shorter the slate, the more you can leave. That's a perfect rule. For those of you that aren't a premium member, definitely want to get signed up, watch, Chop's video, how he won it. But if you do a lot of stuff, again, get signed up. Rotogrinders has Results DB. Great way to go back and look at the lineups people are using. I know not for FanDuel, so this case is a little bit different, but you can use it for so many other things. A lot of what we're talking about like today here is DraftKings, but sometimes it's not about the money left or this galaxy brain unique play, diamond in the rough that everyone wants to find. It's just lineup construction and putting together a few different pieces and just thinking that one extra step further. And try and help you guys with that stuff on here, show every week, but today trying to go through some of those things with you. So back to wide receiver, Chop. Any love for these Carolina guys, I should ask, and then we'll get to the Cincy guys, but Anderson, Samuel, Moore, they're all popping a little bit, but any love for one over the other? It's kind of like the Dallas situation, right? We don't want Teddy, but we'll take one of these guys maybe as a run it back.
Yeah, for me, you know what? If I'm going to rank them, I rank them Moore, Robbie, and Samuel. But the truth is that they don't interest me very much at all. If I'm doing main teams for put it like this: the higher the dollar amount attached to the team I'm building, the more effort I'm putting into it. That's just honesty right there. If I got a lineup with $3,000 on the line, I'm going to put a lot more attention into that lineup than the one that has the $5 Millie Maker ticket, So for the high dollar stuff, I don't think these guys make any of my high dollar lineups. I'm just not that interested in that Carolina passing game or running game on the road against this Washington defense, to be honest. If I get burnt by one of those guys going off, then so be it.
I agree. I mean, they're still fine plays, I think. I'll just say, but like you just said, the more you're attaching to it, the more it makes sense to dig into it a little bit further. I don't think they're going to kill you. It's not quite like what I was just talking about, where you're going looking for this galaxy brain or mega mind play. These are good plays to plug in. If they fit, and you feel comfortable with it, by all means, round your lineup out. But it's just not someone I'm going out of my way to get. Somebody asked Allen Robinson ownership, looking like around 13% currently. Might want to refresh it. We're just going to keep it rolling here, though. And then rank the Cincy guys for me, because a lot of love for T. Higgins. 21% own T. Higgins. You've obviously got A.J. Green there. You've got Erickson, I think is the Stone minimum at 3,000. You've got other guys that you could use for this team. Not something to go way off the board, but just thoughts on T. Higgins and then those around him like A.J. Green.
So T. Higgins is interesting to me. I like T. Higgins. He's definitely my number one Cincy receiver, followed by A.J. Green. And then there's not much after that I want to mess around with. The question is, how much do I like T. Higgins? Because I think he's in a very similar spot to Cooper or Gallup or CD Lamb. Good player, good matchup, but like the quarterback play can only, you feel like it can only go so far with Andy Dalton. Well, I mean, this may be worse than Andy Dalton, man. This is like Brandon Allen and these guys. Like, how far can they take you with upside? I'm not sure. It's a great matchup for T. Higgins, so he's on my radar for sure, and I'm going to play him. And he's kind of polarizing to me. I don't like guys with bad quarterbacks, but this kid's talented. He's got a good matchup, so I'm going to play some T. Higgins. But it wouldn't be a shock to me to see him walk out there and get his 50 yards and no touchdowns, and then you're really disappointed. But I got to play him based on talent and matchup, though.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'll go a little AJ Green in my lineups. I mentioned it, just bringing it back. I don't mind it. It's just so cheap. Couple other guys. We'll go to tight end, guys. Keep your questions coming. We'll get to those. We're going to open up Chop at the end for his conviction plays and where he wants to go with the day. But Crowder, Mike Williams are guys that stand out to me here. Crowder with Darnold has been a thing. His price is cheap. If you want to use him as a secondary stack with a guy like Hunt, I think that's a good play. I think, like we said, a guy like Hunt can do a lot of work at his price tag, gets a bump with all those wide receivers out. The Jets will still have to pass. They can't just, I don't think they want to get shut out here, but I definitely don't think they want to win another game. That was a huge mistake. I know it's, play to win, and I'm all for that camp. I just think it's pretty obvious. The other weeks they were running cover zeros to get beat at the last second just so they let the team come back and get the win, and then that goes on and happens. Shame on the Rams, though, for just looking so poor. But yeah, let's keep going down here. Couple more guys here, and then we'll move on. I like LaVisca. My thing about him is, and we didn't talk about this, but with Robinson out for Jacksonville, I don't like these backups for Jacksonville, and they're already using Chenault in different ways. It's a guy I've liked and followed. Got to plug a little bit of sports cards. Got the Tuesday sports card show. I'm sure Will's going to talk to you about that and get you on with us. Card Stock After Lock, free show that we're going to be doing Tuesday nights here on Rotogrinders. I'm giving away a Tiger Woods rookie card. I think I'm still going to give it away regardless today on my Twitter. It's a PSA 9, but hey, they're going up in value. They're, last I looked, around 120, 130 USD, and they're moving up. Guys are making me offers on my 10s, so I'm not going to sell them until after the documentary. But, we do talk about these guys, and I like Chenault. I think he's a guy that's come out, just looking for prospects that can have these big games and pop, and I think he's a guy. It's tough with the quarterback situation, but they do use him in different ways. So there's, Chenault, another show-out rookie that we were waiting on to see a big game from. Could be today. Jerry Jeudy. Then there's like Sims, Guyton, Hamler. Who else is down? There's another guy I'm forgetting that we'll get to. Anybody basically 3.5, 3.9K and under Chop that you care about?
Yeah. There's several guys. Let me see. The first. Okay, so you said Chenault. Chenault is not a guy that I'm targeting today. But and when I heard Mike Glennon was going to be the quarterback, I didn't have any interest in any of these wide receivers.
Right.
Or sometimes you got to pivot though. And during the show, I'm looking at the inactives and we know, okay, James Robinson officially out. That's good. All right, that's going to help somebody, right? And I'm with you. I don't like the backup running backs either here. But then also I see Colin Johnson is out today. That wasn't one that was on anybody's radar. That wasn't one I was expecting. Colin Johnson is a wide receiver for Jacksonville that's been getting plenty of targets lately. So I don't necessarily like Chenault. So who's going to get the targets here against a very average Bears pass defense? Man, maybe it's DJ Shark. So I'm on DJ Shark now, a guy I've just added to my player pool in the last hour or so. And it's just based on a little bit of late news. But so I'm more on Shark than Chenault. But I'm with you with the principle here. Robinson's not there. They're missing some targets. They're missing some offense. One of these guys, I think, has a fair game today against Chicago. So we'll see how that plays out. As far as cheap guys, Mike Williams is a guy I used to like. I really think they're phasing him out. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see him go for a big game. Feels like they're kind of phasing him out, though, and Keenan's sitting out. So I'm more on the train of Tyron Johnson. And Jalen Guyton's playing more snaps than anybody, even with Keenan Allen in there these last couple. Jalen Guyton's playing a lot of snaps. He's a home run guy. Love him on FanDuel, but he's a cheap price over there. Marvin Hall, Cam Sims. Those guys are all in play. They're cheap. That's what makes this slate so tough is that you got all these 3,500 or less, 4,000 or less wide receivers. I think they're all really solid plays, and it really opens things up for you.
Yeah, love the Tyron Johnson call. That's what I was thinking about. And I know he was getting talked about in the chat a bunch earlier. So I definitely like that call. Big body that they can use, end zone, red zone threat. It could be the Parham vulture, quote unquote. We'll see what happens there, but we'll get that. And speaking of tight end, we'll move across. Marvin Hall was the other guy I was thinking of with Sims. I'm with you there. Kind of for me, when it comes down to that stuff, Chop, I look at correlation. Does it make sense here and there? If I really am using it and down to that spot, how can I fit it in? So talk quickly to me about tight end, because a little bit, easy to talk about here with Kelsey being almost 30%. It's Kelsey or somewhere else. And if you go somewhere else, you got to make a few choices. So what is your take on Kelsey? And then who are some other guys that you like? I'll leave this one up to you.
Kelsey's always he's the best tight end in the game. So every week he has the best opportunity to be the top dog at the position. So he's definitely got to be in there. It's just a matter of where they want to go with this offense this week. So Kelsey's up there. I like Mark Andrews to have a nice game today. I'm more like him on FanDuel because that fits his game more with the touchdowns and not as much volume at the receiving. Dallas Goedert, I think, could have a good game. But Austin Hooper is my best value tight end of the day. I think he's going to get a big step up with the wide receiver injury. So I love me some Austin Hooper. And that's a pretty big – I think there's going to be a lot of ownership on Parham. And there's going to be a lot of ownership of these price tags. I'm going to be under the field. He's still in the player pool. He's probably going to pop in the projections when I run them later on. But I'm probably going to be underweight on Parham. I mean, Hunter Henry's a very good tight end. He couldn't really get going in this offense with Herbert. So I don't know. It would surprise me if Parham's all of a sudden steps up and is the guy. So I'm a little bit under. I'm well underweight on Parham.
Yeah, I like him for the stacks. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I like stacking him up if using them. And the other thing too is I get why people are doing it. Like, you're looking for that one play. He definitely is a red zone, end zone threat, kind of like I just talked about with Tyron Johnson, but there's other guys there. So we'll get to some of the questions here, Chop, and then we'll open it up at the end for you to go through some of your favorites just to tie it all together and tie it down for everyone. We appreciate all the support. Looking at FanDuel cash, or like even if it's a high dollar, low entries, Robert Woods or Allen Robinson on FanDuel today? Pick one.
Oh, Allen Robinson.
I'm with you there. What else do we got? Any love for Jonathan Taylor at the running back position? Just talking outside the box here now a little bit. We didn't mention him.
I do not have love for Jonathan Taylor today.
Okay, I'm with you there as well. I'm not really feeling that game in general. If it happens to be something, then by all means, but it's in Pittsburgh. It's sort of a ground and pound to me, and that involves the running back, of course, but can they do anything? It's against Pittsburgh. I don't see it as much. There's guys behind him, so I don't really love that spot. What about this? Another one came up. Antonio Gibson, assuming everything all good to go there. What about Antonio Gibson as a sneaky play at running back at 6.6K? Questionable tag, but I think he's good to go. So
he's just not a guy that I'm going to play today. And in fact, when I got the news that he was probably going to play today, all it did was take McKissick out of my player pool. So now they're both out instead of McKissick being in.
Yeah, McKissick's out mainly for me because of, especially with the Alex Smith news. That's one of the ones I think we talked about it earlier, but just dropped it. But it looks like Dwayne Haskins is a go. So I like McKissick a lot more in the other spot there. DST, we got time, so we may as well talk about it a little bit here. We'll move over to it. And then someone asked about Washington or the Colts. Let me just see the ownership here right quick and see where we're at. The Texans are getting the most love. Cowboys are getting some love after last week. They looked pretty good. And then Bears, Panthers, Washington, Eagles, sort of run it down from there. Any guys any team, that stands out here for you at defense?
Usually during the week, there's a team that stands out for some reason or another. This week, nobody really stands out. Like, I'm looking at the ownership. I understand what they're doing with the Texans and the ownership price tag in Cincinnati, but that's a bad defense, so they're not standing out. The Bears and the Ravens are getting some of the better projections this morning.
Yeah,
and they're definitely nothing about those guys that are jumping off the charts to me. So to be honest, there's not a defense that stands out. I don't mind the Bears. I don't mind the Ravens. I don't mind the Washington football team against Carolina. We'll see how Carolina plays today, but they may mail it in, and Washington's still playing for something. They got a heck of a defensive line, so you got that. Maybe flying a little bit under the radar, the Rams. The Rams are going to be Rams are going to be pissed, man, after what they did last week against the Jets. And they're going to take it out on somebody, and this is an offensive line that maybe Aaron Donald can feast on. So I think we could rack up some sacks here. You never worry about the points. The points you're going to give up for your defense. You're worried about, can you generate some pressure on the quarterback? And they can do that against Seattle. Here's one that got really bumped up for me later in the week was Pittsburgh. They've looked terrible lately, but I like them in this matchup this week against Indianapolis. And usually I don't want to play defenses against Indy because of that offensive line, but that offensive line is going to struggle today. I think Pittsburgh is a nice under-the-radar defense to pay up for them.
Yeah, I like that call. It's not one that was on my radar, so it stands out. The one for me was the Bears, and I normally don't get too heavy on a D because I space them out quite a bit. I've got a lot more Bears than normal just because a couple of reasons. One, they go well with Montgomery. I think those things line up together. If they're having, it's not that you always need to pair them. I think that's been long played out now for some time, but it definitely works in some cases. That one correlates well for me. I think that. And then the other thing, someone talked about in the chat, it's not true or false. I think it could be true, but playing against a team that's tanking, playing against a team that doesn't have their main running back, like they should have to pass it more. I think what I'm looking for is opportunities, and going against Glennon with some of these backups and things like that. We just talked about a little bit of love for Chenault for me, Chark for you. It's fine, but it's like you said, if they're going to have to do more of that stuff and they can't just hand the ball off all game, we should get a spot where Chicago can get after it. I like the Pittsburgh call. I think that's a good one. The Chalk's not really doing it for me at the top with the Texans and the Cowboys. I like the guys a little bit down, more below. We'll keep the questions coming, guys. I guess, Chop, now's a good time. Everyone talks about these. You've definitely been involved in them plenty in the past, but you've got conviction plays for everybody here. If you could give us maybe a couple conviction plays that you've got today. You've talked about them throughout here, but just maybe dial it in for the people at the end here that waited around for this. So who are 2 to 3, maybe 4 guys that you're on? You can go by position, whatever feels best for you.
I'll start off with running back. I really there's a lot of good running backs. I think the most explosive running back today could end up being Nick Chubb. He's not garnering all that much ownership, so that's good. But yeah, there's something that tells me that the Browns are going to come out and really establish the run, man, and really do this Jets defense dirty. So I like Nick Chubb quite a bit, and I'm willing to pay up for that one. Lots of other good value running backs, so nobody else is jumping out to me, but I like me some Nick Chubb. Quarterback, I'd say the conviction I would have is Mahomes, just because I don't like the other guys as much. So let's just go ahead and spin up, because we're going to be able to spin down at wide receiver and do really whatever we want. And I've already said the high-priced wide receivers I don't like as much. They're always going to be in play. Don't get me wrong, guys. Tyreek Hill and Ridley can always have monster games, but I don't like them as much. So I'm getting a piece of those cheaper guys. Conviction for the cheaper guys, I really want to pull the trigger on T. Higgins and say that's a conviction play. I hate the quarterback, but I love the talent and I love the matchup, and I think he's going to get a bit bigger opportunity. So I'm plugging T. Higgins as a conviction guy. So let's do that. And that tight end, for me on this slate, it's going to be Austin Hooper. I think he's going to be a big time threat in the passing game. But I also want to say, we may not see as much out of those wide receivers. So we may see a guy like Harrison Bryant, who can be a very good pass catcher, end up lining out in the slot more and playing more Jarvis Landry role. A guy like that may just be able to blow up. But I'm going to put my money on Austin Hooper, but watch out for a guy like Harrison Bryant too.
Yeah, watch him just destroy Parham for that same 2.5K tag, and it's just nobody will have him. So I definitely don't hate that, man. We appreciate you. We're going to go through some final questions. We got a couple minutes left, guys. Toss all your questions in there. Anything, as far as stacks go, you mentioned all your quarterbacks earlier, but, just mentioned Mahomes. We talked about that enough. Any, one stack that stands out? This is normally how we round up the Tourney Takes podcast, is we all go through one stack with a run it back, maybe one that you're comfortable talking about here and just throwing out for the big stuff.
I'm just not in love with a lot of stacks. So I say that just based on process of elimination, Deshaun Watson to Brandon Cooks, run it back with T. Higgins. I love Deshaun, I love Cooks, and I love Higgins, so might as well stack them up.
Yeah, I think that's unique enough too. Like you said, you just look at it. This was the last one that I said too on the speaking of that podcast. I said the interesting part about Watson is we like the Cincy pieces on the other side. We like, the quarterback position is so stacked with this ownership at the top. Watson isn't even getting 10% ownership, and it's a possibility here where he could just have one of those games. And if he does that, it's going to be big trouble for all of those Mahomes lineups. Almost like yesterday, right? Yesterday on the 3-game slate, we had Tom Brady come out early, and a lot of by halftime, everyone was so happy he didn't come back out, but everyone still had hope for Kyler Murray. Well, they're like, oh, he can still put up 35, so we're not dead here yet. But it's that same feel, right? You got that quarterback that costs a little bit more that you're expecting this explosive game out of that probably makes sense, and then you get that situation. So I like the Watson call. Certainly going to look at that when we get off here a little bit further. Someone said, yeah, Harrison Bryant, 2 TDs now is the new prediction thanks to the chop call. So who do you like running it back? You already mentioned Woods over Kupp, right? For the Rams, you said?
Yeah, I like Woods over Kupp. In chat too, I'm also seeing this name thrown out several times. And Ito Smith, I don't know what you guys are, I don't know, maybe I'm not seeing something, but guys, I wouldn't mess around with a guy like Ito Smith, man. That's just.
I'm not messing around with him, but the guy I just praised earlier, our guy Eric Beimfor, he's interested. And you do the Monday Showdown show with him. I do the Sunday Showdown show with you. Again, guys, get signed up. Check us out. But, that's interesting that he's on him there at 4K. I think it's just, maybe because they're down so much. Or I don't know if it's like NBA. He's looking for the blowout risk here, and you get this guy in as the backup later on. And I know he's the starter for them now, but just the point is he's not really that great. So we'll see what he does. Brian Hill, people want to talk about. That's probably why, because he doesn't want to do the Brian Hill thing, because that's absolutely the worst pain you can put yourself through on a Sunday. And guys, you're talking about the run it back for the Rams stack. Chop already mentioned he likes Tyler Lockett. Everybody loves Tyler's. I get it, man. It makes sense. The namesake play and Tyler Lockett. I'll get a few of him in my lineup. And then did you say anything about Henderson at running back for the Rams, or you weren't feeling him?
I think he's okay. He's cheap enough. I don't mind. It's just that so much opened up later in the week here with some of the news and, Le'Veon Bell and Melvin Gordon and these guys that he just kind of slid under the radar for me. So I think he's fine, though. I think he may go underappreciated today. I don't mind Darrell Henderson, but I'm just not on him as much because of the other guys.
That's it. That's all, man. We appreciate it. Chop, thanks so much again, man. Congrats on the big win last week. Go after it again this week. We're all looking to get there. Everybody that's following along, we appreciate you guys. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Totag and Tambo. Hit me up if you guys have any questions. Thank you again, Chop. Thank you, guys, and good luck.
Here back at the Fantasy Bar. Christmas is behind us, but the Week 16 slate is on deck, and I'm back with 6 of my favorite plays, including my favorite correlation plays, which games am I stacking, and of course, my favorite play of the week. Who is it? Belly up to the Fantasy Bar and find out. Welcome back to the Fantasy Bar, guys. Week 16 edition Beers Daily Fantasy 6-pack. Good to be back here in the friendly confines once again with 6 guys fresh off the tap for you on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Hope everybody out there had a great Christmas, great holiday season with your family and friends. But we turn the page here to Week 16. We'll only cover the main slate here, 10 games on the docket, and we're going to get you some winners here with my 6 favorite plays on the slate. As always, before we jump into the plays, guys, do me a favor, click that thumbs up button. That's the tip jar here in the Fantasy Bar. Really helps us out, so I greatly appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and get notified when these videos are coming out. All right, before we talk Week 16, as always, for transparency, we take a look back at Week 15 and a decent week. And we had some hits, we had some misses. Obviously, the injury to Cam Akers did not help things, but solid production pretty much out of the rest of the guys. Everyone found the end zone here and the beast of the week. And no, it's been a couple rough weeks, but Calvin Ridley went nuts there with Julio on the sidelines as we expected. So decent week. All in all, Calvin Ridley, the winner there. But as always, we turn the page here to Week 16, and let's do just that. Let's start at the running back position with Miles Sanders of the Eagles. Now, this matchup with Dallas is one that we're going to continue to attack. We did it last week with Jeff Wilson. He found the end zone, and I think Miles Sanders has big-time upside here in this matchup. We know Dallas is bad against the run, bottom 10 in DVOA, bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed over the season, bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed over the last month. We know Dallas gives up a ton of yards and production to running backs, backed over 130 yards per game rushing allowed. Do the Cowboys give up here? And Sanders has really seized control of this backfield. It was in question. We were seeing way too much Boston Scott here, but 82 and 89% of the backfield snaps over the last 2 weeks for Miles Sanders. And I think a lot of people are going to go to Jalen Hurts. I love Jalen Hurts as well, as much as the next guy, but I think this will be nice leverage off of Jalen Hurts. Sanders has played extremely well since he's entered the starting lineup here. I think you're going to get an ownership discount here in a dream matchup with the Dallas Cowboys. All right, speaking of the Cowboys, let's get some correlation on that side of the ball with wide receiver Amari Cooper. So I saw this price on DraftKings, and it was absolutely floored. Just an absolute steal here for Amari Cooper at only $5,700, even the $6,600 on FanDuel. I don't mind that price at all, and it's nice correlation with Sanders. We expect him to do well. That may force Dallas to throw a little bit more. I think this can be a good spot here for Amari Cooper. Coming off a down game, was barely targeted in that last game. I really think we see a bounce back here to more normal Amari Cooper numbers, more targets here. And this Philadelphia secondary is absolutely beat up. They may get Darius Slay back, but I will continue to say, as I have over the years, I think he is highly overrated, and wide receiver ones have absolutely torched this Philadelphia secondary, including some big games against Darius Slay. In fact, they are the worst team against wide receiver ones, according to DVOA, and they're not very good. Let's just be honest. So injuries, no skill there, and too cheap of a price here. Add it all up. Love the spot for Amari Cooper against the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, let's go back to the running back position. Another guy on the higher end I'm liking this week, Austin Eckler of the Chargers. So another guy, ho-hum box score. We get Kalen Ballage kind of stealing touches, stealing goal line touches, and I think this is going to help keep this as a lower owned play with some big time upside. Now, I get it. That's a concern, no doubt, but this matchup I think is really going to unlock a ceiling here for Austin Eckler. The Broncos 27 in DVOA against the run so far this season. Really been a struggle of late the last few weeks. They've really been torched by opposing running backs. In LA, nice favorable total here, 6th highest total of the 20 teams we have on the slate, plus home favorites, a spot we know we want to take our running backs in here, and a guy we know will be involved in the passing game. Keenan Allen, as of this moment, questionable. If he were to miss this game, that may mean a few more targets here for Austin Eckler. But I love the spot here. I think he's going to check in at very low ownership and going to be a big part of my builds here in week 16. All right, let's get more correlation with the Eckler pick. Let's go to the other side with tight end Noah Fant of the Broncos. So this is one of those games I think is very stackable. It's not the highest total out there, not the game on the marquee, but that game that I think there's a lot of stackable pieces. Or you can just use a skinny stack of Eckler and Fant here, which is what I'll do in the lineups. I don't stack this game, but coming off season highs, targets, receptions last week, 8 catches in that game against Buffalo, and this is a good matchup for him. Chargers have really struggled against the tight end position. In fact, bottom 12 in fantasy points allowed to this position. So Drew Lock, this offense can be frustrating, but Noah Fant, as long as he's healthy, as long as he's out there, which he showed us last week, can be one of the best in the game. Don't have to pay those Kelsey prices, but we still get a nice ceiling here with Noah Fant against the Chargers. All right, let's move on to the quarterback position. We're going to go back to our boy Mitchell Trubisky of the Bears. Now, I know you guys love to give me some flack when I put old Mitch in the 6-pack, but this Bears offense has really started to look good here. 30-plus points in 3 straight games, and I get it. David Montgomery, probably the biggest benefactor and the main reason why this offense is clicking, but let's look at the guy at the helm of this offense, and let's look at the matchup here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And all of these Bears are going to be in play. No issues with David Montgomery with the way he's playing, but Jacksonville's second most fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks, a team that probably does not want to win any more games with Trevor Lawrence looming big here. Now that they sit in the throne with the #1 pick on deck here, I think this team is really going to lay over and die. And as you'd expect, the team that gives up a lot of production to the quarterback position, also not very good against the pass. And that shows in their DVOA rank 32nd in the league, dead last against the pass here. Trubisky is cheap. I think there's upside here. And I love the spot against this terrible Jacksonville defense. All right, it's time to take a look at my favorite play for week 16. But before we do that, guys, we're going to continue our Beast of the Week contest. Absolutely free to enter. All you have to do is get in the comment section right below the video and guess fantasy points on DraftKings for my favorite play. Closest guess will win themselves either a free week of Rotogrinders Premium or a free Rotogrinders t-shirt. Let's wrap up week 16, my favorite play. You know, Mass, the Beast of the Week. All right, Beast time. We owe you one more wide receiver, and I think you know where we're going here. We're going to correlate with our boy Trubisky. We're going with wide receiver Allen Robinson, this week's Beast of the Week. So Robinson, we know, one of the best in the games. You get a solid floor. You get upside. In fact, 70 more receiving yards in every game this season except for 3 games. I mean, that is consistency. Also has multiple 30-point outings this season as well. And Jacksonville, as you'd expect, we talked about how bad they are against quarterbacks, and only makes sense that they're not good against wide receivers. Bottom 10 in that category as well. Plus, we get a little bit of narrative here. You guys know I love narrative street. You get a good matchup, you get a hell of a player in Allen Robinson, but you also get narrative revenge game against his former team here. I think David Montgomery going to eat up a lot of ownership here. So the Trubisky-Robinson pairing going to come in a little bit cheaper on the ownership than it normally would. Love all 3 of those guys, but Allen Robinson, easily my favorite play on this week 16 slate and this week's Beast of the Week. All right, guys, that'll do it for week 16 here in the Fantasy Bar. As always, any comments, questions, feedback, hit me up in that comment section. You can also head over to Twitter and follow me at BeerMakersFan. And if you want more expanded thoughts on the slate, from guys like Notorious, Head Chopper, and myself. Check out the DFS OGs podcast over on Rotogrinders.com. For Rotogrinders, I am Beer saying salute. Best of luck this week, guys. Thank you, as always, for watching, and we'll see you.
Hey, thanks for checking out our videos. If you want more expert advice on DraftKings, FanDuel, or any other daily fantasy sports, make sure you check out the current videos playlist.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Crunch Time NFL edition. Pretty fun slate here, and I am joined by a couple very sharp NFL minds. One, as always, Miss Christy Metzger. Hey, Christy, what's up?
Hey, glad to be here with you guys. I think we got a great slate. It's a little bit smaller slate this week. So yeah, excited to join you and have Justin join us as well.
Yeah, we got Justin Carlucci, aka the Luch, with us. Also, you were just digging deep into Lineup HQ. I saw you had some settings like tinkering with your tight end overall ownership, but you ready to rock this?
Ready to go. I'm glad it's kind of a manageable slate with NBA, a big Sunday slate for a change. So it's a really busy day here at RG, and looking forward to it. 2 weeks in a row, Kevin. Thanks for having me back, and good to see you, Christy.
Obviously, you did pretty good last time. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten the invite. So, you held your own, and we're excited to have you back. We are going to give the people all the goodies, all the free info that they want. But before we do that, we got to talk about the PrizePicks promo. This is great because right now we're running a promo at Rotogrinders for PrizePicks. If you use the promo code Grinders, you get 100% deposit bonus up to $100. So that's a free $100. And you get 2 months free of Rotogrinders combo package. That's also $100 a month. So basically it's a free $300, and we're giving you the picks. So Christy, why don't you start us out with your favorite pick?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of picks. One, Giovanni Bernard in the Cincinnati game. Really like him on the over. It's at 10.5. I mean, Houston's just giving up, I think it's 180 total yards per running back this year. So that one just seems like a great play to me. And then
it's 10.5 yards total?
10.5 score.
Oh, okay. It's for score. I was like, what in the world? Okay,
yeah,
that makes more sense.
That. Yeah, 10.5 for score. And then the projected score is for T. Higgins in the same game, 11. I've got an over on that too. With Tyler Boyd out, there are just a couple players I really like against Houston this week. So those are my two picks.
All right, Justin, you got a couple?
I really like that Giovanni Bernard call, especially with the PrizePicks' PPR format too. So yeah, exactly. I really like that one. I went with Calvin Ridley over 18. I mean, obviously he gets very popular when Julio Jones is not active. In 4 of the 5 weeks without Julio this year, he hit the over on that 18 prop, and he just sees crazy volume. 13 targets, 10 targets, 12 targets, 14 targets, and I think he had 9 in the week he missed. So the volume's there. I like his odds, and Vegas likes the Chiefs in that game, so I like the game script. We know Atlanta does not run the ball at all whatsoever when Ito Smith is dubbed the lead back here late in the season. So I like Ridley, and I love the Bernard call. So those are 2 picks. I think I'd be taking both of them too.
Yeah, those sound like excellent picks. All right, we're going to give the people some of the plays. We're also going to take some of your questions here at the end once we go position by position. Note that we are offering a discount to RG Premium members now. If you subscribe, your first month is $10 off, and that's whether you get the combo or the single sport. And the single sport's already pretty cheap, so $10 off of that for your first month. That's a good deal, so I recommend you take advantage of that. And then, of course, stick with us for the rest of your life because we give out good information. We will prove it right now. Justin, you want to lead us off with the little quarterback talk?
Oh man, proving it right now with the stick with us for life. Just got to set the bar high, I guess. But here on Lineup HQ, you can see, Mahomes is pretty chalky as far as quarterbacks ownerships get concerned, with Jalen Hurts, who's been just helping some people win a hell of a lot of money the last couple of weeks. He's up to 7K. I kind of like the discount on ownership you can get on Deshaun Watson, who played pretty well last week. The problem is, you're at the point where who do you want to pair him with? You go down to the Brandon Cookswell, who hasn't scored in months, after he had a couple of big weeks. So, and anytime you can get Lamar Jackson under 10%, he's another guy you could play naked, for lack of a better terms. People have been doing it with Jalen Hurts. So I do like all that. I mentioned Calvin Ridley. I know Atlanta's team total is a little bit low. They're playing outside, and a lot of people think Matt Ryan and the Falcons are strictly a dome team and very soft, but the game script and the way that Atlanta's just going to continue to throw the ball, I kind of like Matt Ryan for a little bit of contrarian look here. I never get the Falcons right, though, so that's my problem. So maybe the best information I'll give you is specifically Matt Ryan is just don't listen. Just don't listen to me this week. I don't know, but Matt Ryan, he's going to have the game script. They should be trailing. And he popped off last week on a week when nobody was on him. Nobody's on him again in a game where they should be throwing the ball. So he's one of my favorite kind of contrarian looks today, but there are a ton of options this week.
Okay, some great plays. Christy, there anything that you agree strongly with, disagree with, or anyone else that you feel like is a little sneaky that you like?
Yeah, I got a couple sneaky plays too. I'm with you on Mahomes. I think I love that game a lot. I mean, he's in a fantastic spot. That total is very high, so I like him. I like Hurts, Watson, and Jackson, like you said. Trubisky, I think, is an interesting play too. I think the Bears, they need to, if they're going to make the playoffs, I think they could potentially have a good game. Montgomery will be popular. I like Allen Robinson as a good play today. So I think he allows you to get a lot of players in. So he's someone that I'm looking at. Lamar Jackson, like you mentioned, if he's going to be under-owned, I think he's a fantastic GPP option. I think you can play him in cash as well, but great GPP play. And then one more for you too. I don't really see much talk about him at all, but Jared Goff, I think, is a little bit sneaky. They're going to have to throw it a little bit. Henderson's projected to be very popular for a running back. But he's got Cooper Kupp and he's got Robert Woods at his disposal. And I think that could be a little bit of a sneakier shootout in that game. So I think that's a good tournament play.
Excellent. Love it. Let's go to running back. Christy, you can lead us off. We'll talk about, what's the chalk, or what do you think are the right cash plays?
Yeah. So the right cash plays this week, I think Austin Eckler is kind of leading the way. He's really cheap on FanDuel at 7K, but makes for a really good play. I know he's still giving up a little bit of the goal line carries to Blaj, but he's in a good spot. David Montgomery, of course, has just emerged as, just an insanely great play the last few weeks. I mentioned the Bears really need to win. I think he's in a great spot. And I think he's going to be a very good cash game play today as well. And then there's a few cheap guys that have emerged. Melvin Gordon, I think, makes a really good cash game play. Philip Lindsay's out. His price is really good. I think it's 5,300 or 5,400 on DK, 6,400 on FanDuel. So I think those are really good plays. Also in the cash game conversation, I think you could include Le'Veon Bell. I think you could use Henderson, like we mentioned in the Rams game. And this is maybe a little bit more of a tournament play, but we talked about Giovanni Bernard. He's really cheap on DraftKings, and boy, I just don't. He's in a smash spot. He's a little bit hard to trust, but I think he makes for a great play. And then the last play I'll mention is David Johnson. I think he's cash game viable as well. Again, just in a really great spot. The Bengals give up almost 5 yards per catch, so I think he's in a spot too for cash and tournaments.
Okay, Justin, anything there that you will not be playing? Any of those guys you're like, well, I see it, but not for me? And is there anything else that you're interested in?
No, you make a lot of really good points. I just want to queue up Allen here because there's some revenge narrative here. Melvin Gordon revenge game. Everybody loves a good narrative. And it's Nick Chubb's birthday today, right? So he's already in a smash spot against the Jets. So I think the Browns game is interesting as a whole, as their entire offensive unit has COVID. So, people are going to be throwing Marvin Hall. We'll get to receivers, but that is a weird, situation in Cleveland. So I think those are some really good calls. Giovanni Bernard, PPR format, he's under 5K. I really agree with you there. A guy who's kind of just lost in the middle here is Miles Sanders, 7K. We know he's talented. We know Dallas stinks. So, there's some leverage, again, off Jalen Hurts potentially if you're looking to get a little bit different and you're not using Jalen Hurts today. One more guy, maybe you can get some late swap leverage and some low ownership here is I don't believe we have Antonio Gibson news yet. So maybe people aren't going to play JD McKissick. He's more appealing on DK with the PPR format. Captain Checkdown, Alex Smith is back. All he does is throw the ball 5 to 10 yards downfield, loves hitting his running back. So I'll be hopefully trying to leave a spot or two open when we get some info when 405 rolls around.
Okay, so that's for if Gibson is out, you want McKissick. Is that correct?
Yeah, I like him quite a bit, and I think you get some decent ownership on him.
Okay, excellent. Let's go to wide receiver. And Justin, you kind of mentioned we've got some COVID woes going on, but why don't you run through what you think is the cash game build here?
Yeah, and it starts with Calvin Ridley, I believe, and the problem is that there were some very expensive pieces in that game. You have Tyreek and Calvin Ridley. Tyreek's 9K now. Rightfully so. He's had some monster games this year. Part of my gut is telling me, well, he's not 100%. They might not have a problem with Atlanta. Like, I'm a little worried if this thing gets to, third, fourth quarter, if maybe you see some more Mecole Hardman in those sets or something like that. So, gun to head, I kind of prefer Ridley. I think the floor is really high. It's all about opportunity and volume, and he's going to be the guy for Atlanta. Christy, you mentioned some of those cheap pieces. T. Higgins looks to be very popular here. I'm sure some people will be rostering AJ Green. And I'll pose this question to you because when I do my builds, I kind of like to stick value in first and kind of work around it. But how many Bengals can you actually play today is kind of a legitimate question. And, I don't mind playing 1, 2. I'm like, wow, I'm going to throw 2 Bengals in here. But, Houston's been pretty bad. And, situation-wise, there should be some bumps and some usage. And some volume there. And here is Mecole Hardman at almost bare minimum. A guy who pretty much has no floor, really. He caught touchdowns in 2 of the last 3 games. I'm a little – I know people want to jam in the min-price guy and kind of get those more expensive pieces. But, I see he's coming in at 15%. I'm a little nervous to play a guy like Mecole Hardman, so I'm kind of out on him. But, you see other guys. I think Russell Gage, Atlanta's just – I'm going to keep saying this Atlanta thing and watch. They'll probably put up between 6 and 10 points now that I'm on him so much, but they're going to keep throwing the ball. Russell Gage, very cheap, usually gets the volume. So I like him at 5,100. And I know you mentioned Allen Robinson, I love this. Another revenge game on top of everything else here, but Allen Robinson has been phenomenal this year. And, he's carrying a little bit of ownership, but you can still get a little bit of leverage, if you play him in tournaments and kind of don't play Montgomery. And he pairs well with Trubisky, like you said.
Okay. A quick note on something you mentioned earlier about Alex Smith. He is out, and Haskins, Haskins is actually starting. Oh. So does that take you off Captain Checkdown and the running game now?
No, not. I mean, I like him more with Smith, which is funny. But it doesn't take me off him as long as Gibson's out, especially with Scary Terry's, designation as well. They're going to have to find some volume and some playmaking elsewhere. So, wow, good breaking news there, Kevin. I'm a little behind here.
I'm here for a shout out to Devin, producer extraordinaire, and the couple people in chat who mentioned it as well. All right, Christy, wide receiver. What do you got for me? What do you like?
Yeah, so I like a lot of those plays too. And I think Tyreek is going to be interesting today because he is a little bit banged up with his hamstring. I think he almost makes a better tournament play today because you're right. I mean, if they don't need him as much, some of those ancillary pieces, like you mentioned, Hardman and Watkins could be used a little bit more. So I think he's a good tournament play. A couple other guys, Mike Williams, I think for the Chargers, I think he's a good play with Keenan Allen being out. He's very cheap on both FanDuel and DraftKings. I think Jalen Guyton on DraftKings in particular, I think he's $3,200 or $3,400 somewhere in there. He's been getting a lot more targets the last few games. So I think he's a very intriguing tournament play. And then a guy that I wrote up this week, Deontay Johnson for Pittsburgh. His price has come down. His targets are insane. I think he's the one part of the Pittsburgh game that I like, and I'm finding him in some of my lineups on both DK and FanDuel today. And then one other guy I like, I don't think many people will be on him, but Tyler Lockett. Metcalf has by far the hardest matchup today with Ramsey, and Lockett hasn't performed well, but his price is adjusted accordingly. And so especially on my Goff stacks, I really like him as a comeback and think he can be a really sneaky play today.
Okay. Also, kudos for dropping ancillary pieces at the start of that wide receiver. That's very well done. Vocab on point, as always. Let's run to tight end. We're doing pretty good here timing-wise. We should have a lot of time for some of these questions. So let's go to tight end. Christy, what are we looking at?
Yeah, so tight end, it looks like there's going to be some pretty chalky pieces as I pull it up here, because there's a cheap guy that's emerged on the Chargers side is it Parham? Yeah. And so I think he is going to be very, very popular. He's, min price on DK, $4,200 on FanDuel. And then of course we've got Kelsey. So it looks like as far as ownership goes, Kelsey's still leading the way, but I think Parham allows you to get a lot in there, and especially if you're looking to get Tyreek Hill in there and things like that. Another guy I really like and I think makes sense for cash is Austin Hooper. Who else do they have? He's going to be their number one receiver, in fact, today. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him be a top 5, tight end, at the end of Sunday today. So I think he makes a great cash game play. Logan Thomas, pretty steady. Like you said, McLaurin's out. I think, he's just very cash reliable there. So he's a guy I like. And then, Dallas Goedert and Noah Fant are a couple others, I think, in cash. And then Mark Andrews too, especially on those Lamar Jackson stacks. But I think for cash, you're kind of looking at Kelsey, Hooper, Thomas, and Parham.
Okay. What do you have the most exposure to at tight end, Christy?
Kelsey is my most exposure, especially with Tyreek being a little bit banged up. I'm very overweight on him today.
Okay. Just checking. Justin, what do you like at tight end? Anything different there, or anyone that you feel strongly about?
No, I like all those calls. Austin Hooper should have a seriously advanced role. He looked pretty good since he returned the last couple of weeks. I'm addicted to playing Noah Fant. He's by far his talent maybe supersedes what he's actually done so far in his career, but he's shown some flashes. He's a guy who gets hurt every other game and you're holding your breath. But I do like Noah Fant's upside. Jalen Hurts threw the ball a lot last week. If you're not using him, I'm not sure if I'd use one of the Eagles tight ends, but it looks like he targeted Zach Ertz quite a bit too. Finally Zach Ertz sighting, and he's coming in under 2 or 3% we haven't projected at. So I think he's interesting. One more guy I want to bring up for tournaments is Cole Kmet. Everybody was on him last week. I was on him. I was wrong. Everybody was on him was wrong. But nothing has really changed, and he has another really good matchup, and he's 15% projected owner on DK, less than he was last week. Last week was a game where David Montgomery had 32 attempts, by far a career high. There's a chance he goes out and smashes the Jaguars again, and they give him the ball 25, 30 times again. I just don't know how likely that is. So I think Cole Kmet's in a great matchup and a nice bounce back spot. It looked like the torch was kind of being passed from Jimmy Smith. So at 3K, if you're looking for a little bit of salary relief and you're coming in at low ownership, I kind of like Cole Kmet in his matchup against the Jags today too.
All right. Question from Mickley Page on tight end before we get to defense. Any interest in DK cash of going double tight end, Hooper and Kelsey?
Man, I guess I'm first. I don't think for cash. That's usually a way to diversify your portfolio a little bit. You can see a lot of great articles, especially Britt's Millie articles, where it shows you how oftentimes people flex tight ends. So I think if you're looking to be a little safer, I like both plays, but personally, I don't think I would use both of them.
Christy,
I think you're right. I was going to say for cash, definitely no tournaments. You could maybe throw a couple in there, but I think Justin's exactly right.
Okay, excellent. Let's go to defense, and Justin, you can lead us off here. Already had a few questions on it. Let's see. D Gold says Bengals, Jets. What are you thinking here as far as defense and cash?
If there's any position where you steal a page from Jordan Cooper, is play whoever you want. It's probably defense at this point, because you're looking for that fluke turnover. You're not worried about a defense holding someone under 10 points anymore, like the good old days of fantasy sports. It's all about getting those turnovers, getting those pressures. So you know what? I don't mind. Houston's so bad defensively, and here they are coming in at just about 12%, the highest owned defense on the slate. I get it. I don't put a ton of stock in picking the right defense if I'm putting in 100 to 150 entries and something like that. However, I don't mind Carolina with Dwayne Haskins, since you broke me that news. He's turnover prone, and that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, defense is tough this week. I don't really have much of a lean Obviously, I like the Ravens because they blitz a lot. I like pressure. I look at pressure metrics, if anything, and how opposing offensive lines handle that pressure. So I take the heavy blitzing teams if I really try to kind of target anybody specifically. Right under them on our projection model is, I'm pointing at the screen like I have a pointer, like you guys can see me, is the Chargers at 3,300. And listen, I just don't think Drew Lock's very good. So I don't mind the Chargers at 3,300 either on DK.
Okay, Christy, you got a favorite here real quick?
Yep. On FanDuel, I really like the Chargers. They're actually $3,700. And so they're probably my favorite play on FanDuel. They make sense. Pair them with Eckler. On DK, I think the Texans and Cowboys are pretty cheap. And so I'm looking more probably to punt or so. And I think the Jets are okay. If they can get you a few points, which they have been doing the last few weeks, I'm more than fine going way to the bottom and using the Jets or Bengals, like someone mentioned too. So I think they're fine. I'm probably looking at more of the cheaper options this week and looking pretty heavily at Chargers on FanDuel.
Okay, great. Guys, we've got 9 minutes left to bring in questions. I will be taking questions from the premium Discord chat as well as the free chat. If you're a freeloader, keep in mind, we do this all the time. If you sign up for Rotogrinders, literally all day long, you can ask the pros questions and we answer them on our Discord page. So go ahead, jump in premium. You get $10 off your first month. Devin will drop the link. With that said, let's get to Jordan's question. DK Cash, and I'll start with you, Christy. Your favorite wide receiver play under 4.7. I've got T. Higgins already.
Okay, under 4.7. Let me go there real quick. I would say receivers up here.
Whoops.
Under 4.7. Yeah, T. Higgins, obviously. I kind of think Jamison Crowder is a little bit interesting too. He's 4.5K, so I would go with him.
Okay, great. We'll go to Podo for the next question. DK Cash, pick 2 of Cam Sims, AJ Green, LaVisca, or Marvin Hall.
I like Sims with Haskin, and I think I'm going AJ Green.
Okay, excellent. Jansen's DKGPP. These are 2 guys that you just mentioned, Christy. Crowder or Higgy. Who do you prefer out of the 2?
I'd go Higgins.
Great. Man says, what are your thoughts on Kareem Hunt today in GPPs as a pivot off of some of the chalk like Gordon, given Cleveland's wide receiver situation? Could get Hunt work as well? Could Hunt get work as a wide receiver? Excuse me.
I love it. Yes. I think the answer is yes. We even saw some of it when Hunt was active the last couple of weeks. Flank him out, trying to get him on a bad linebacker matchup. They're going to have to find other ways to get him involved because the rest of the guys are Marvin Hall and practice squad guys. Marvin Hall has been there for like 3 weeks. That's it. So I like the Hunt call and getting some leverage quite a bit. Coming in at just under 7%, we haven't projected on DK. So my head is there as well. Yep.
Okay. Speaking of Marvin Hall, Mark Flores in the chat says DKGPP, is Marvin Hall playable or is he not worth it? Is he just straight garbage?
For min price, I think he is. They just don't have many options, and so I think he's a fine punt.
Okay, great. Let's go to Dovey Solomon, DK. This is in the spy. You want Gio or Henderson?
For me, it's Gio. The PPR upside and the matchup is there too, I think. Let me add one more guy in since I was just scrolling. I totally forgot to mention him. Maybe I didn't. I didn't have my coffee today. J.K. Dobbins, 1.8%. I said this on the preview pod with TJ. I feel like the 20-plus touch game is coming. Mark Ingram was completely phased out last week. I don't love it, but eventually you got to give Lamar a break. You can't just keep putting him out there, especially if they play with the lead. Just want to throw that out there.
Okay, like that. All right, Brandon says, let's see, this is DK Cash, Christy. Kelsey and Marvin Hall or Ty Freak and Parham?
I think I'm going the first one. I think I'm going to go with Kelsey.
All right. I like this question from David, who is the safest running back in cash outside of Montgomery?
My pick is let me think here. Nick Chubb for sure. I think he's got super high floor. The volume's going to be there. They need playmakers. We just talked about like Austin Eckler a lot, but I think Nick Chubb's the safest.
Okay, great. David Lynch says single entry GPP, Christy, Goddard or Hoop?
Hoop, definitely.
Nice. El Sayed Radwan says FanDuel Cash, Mahomes or Hurts? Who's your guy?
I don't have the pricing in front of me. I'm more DK, but for me, I'm never turning down Pat Mahomes in cash. You know what you're getting every week.
Okay. Dallas says, is McCole Hardman cash viable, Christy?
I don't think he's cash viable, but I think he's a fantastic tournament play.
All right. Jeremy Prino says, DK tournament, Gallup or Hooper? I've already got Kelsey at tight end.
Whew, that's tough. I would say Gallup for large field tournaments. Hooper's a little safer if you're playing kind of optimally.
All right. Crazy Coop says, McKissick in my flex and leave enough money to pivot off if Gibson plays for Cup. DK single entry. So I'm sorry, if Gibson plays, for Cup. And did we hear, I think
Gibson's in.
Gibson is in. So
I think so.
So go Cup, in my opinion, if you have that, or change it quick. You have 5 minutes to.
Yep. There you go. 5 minutes, plenty of time. Unless you're doing 150 lineups, in which case there's not plenty of time. Fit Crooks, DK Cash, can Cam Sims and pay up at defense special teams, and Mike DK Cash, Cam Sims and pay up at defense, or Mike Williams and pay down at defense?
For me, like I said, I don't put a ton of stock in defense. So who do you like more? You know, we mentioned Mike Williams. I think he's in a nice little spot there too. So I'm with the Mike Williams call.
Great. Is 3 Chargers too many Chargers in cash, Christy?
Oh, for cash, probably Eckler and Williams. I think you could if there's a week to do it, this is maybe a week to do it, but I'd probably go 2 personally, but I think you could get away with 3.
All right. We've got about 3 minutes left. Mike Zimmerman giving you a 2v2v2. You ready for it? All right. Hooper Crowder, Parham Gage, or Fant Guyton?
Can you run that back one more time?
Hooper Crowder, Parham Gage, Fant Guyton.
I think I'm going the Gage combo. Probably. It's lineup dependent, really. Like if you're in a 2-player slot, but I like that second one.
Okay, great. Brian says, Christy, how about a Cleveland onslaught? Just play the whole team. Mayfield, Chubb, Hunt, Hooper.
I think it's interesting for tournaments for sure.
Okay. Sean says, QQ, Eckler, Cam Sims, or Chubb Hardman?
Chubb Hardman, I think, has higher upside.
Okay. So a bunch of good questions still, and we only have 2 minutes, so let's keep rolling these. Matt says, can you play Eckler and Gordon in the same GPP lineup?
Absolutely. I think that's a great, in fact, I know I have a lineup with both of them in there.
Excellent. I like it. Craig says, is this too much? I guess, is it too much Bears in DK Cash? Mitch, Montgomery, and the Bears D.
No, I think that's fine if that's the way you're going. Nice little correlation there between Montgomery and the defense. I just wouldn't. I don't know if Mitch is the guy I would play naked in cash. So maybe I would, rethink that. Just doesn't have the rushing upside. I don't think.
Christy, I know that's your boy. Do you disagree? Mitch, Montgomery, and Bears D.
Yeah, I could see playing them this week just because they have a lot on the line. So I'm okay with it actually.
Okay, we'll go to Maz. Christy, this is for you. Laviska Shenault or Cam Sims?
I'd go Shenault.
JMVP says DK Cash. You like Cooks as a last piece?
Yeah, certainly do.
Okay. Brian Anderson says, hey, nobody's talking about Chris Carson. Any interest?
Yeah, I not as much this week just because Penny is back now. I mean, I think he's okay if you kind of land on him, but he's not someone I'm targeting this week.
Karen Crooks with a similar question, double tight end in cash, Kelsey and Parham. You both said you're fine with it in tournaments, but you don't think it's cash
right.
optimal.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
By the way, that's exactly what I would do. So probably don't do it because I'm garbage. Moy Toy says, thoughts on playing Harrison Bryant instead of Hooper with Crowder in a DK GPP?
How big is the GPP? If you're throwing it in like a milli, okay, but I wouldn't like comfortably do that. Njoku's still kind of floating around there too. There's a chance that's an onslaught, but I really don't know what you're going to get out of that game. When you're missing so many pieces, it's kind of a play action, timing oriented offense with Baker. Maybe it's not an onslaught. I don't know. The Jets just won a huge game, guys.
Yeah.
It's true. Let's see. That's pretty much it. Devin, are we getting close to lock here? Yeah, 30 seconds, but you know what? We have handled just about all of these questions. That was excellently done from both of you guys. I mean, give yourself a little round of applause. Christy and Justin, excellently handled. Let's see if we can get one more in. Is it okay to have Ridley and Gage in the same lineup in FanDuel GPPs?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Absolutely.
And that is about it. That was excellent. Guys, if you enjoy this content, if you like the fact that you have two really sharp people who answer all of your fantasy sports questions, along with the best tools in the biz there with Lineup HQ, you should sign up for Rotogrinders Premium. This is the tip of the iceberg. We got so much more than what you're seeing on the show. So if you sign up now, you get $10 off your first month. I recommend it. A few people saying they went double tight end in DK Cash. I do it every time. I don't know why. And this seems like a good week to do it. So I approve, although I don't think it is optimal. With that, guys, we have an option. We can hang out here a little longer. We can chit chat, or we can go and watch football. Christy, what do you think we should do?
I'm thinking the football route. Sounds pretty good.
I'm thinking we should go watch football. Guys, everybody, for Justin, for Christy, for Devin, always working hard behind the scenes. Everybody out there, we appreciate you. We love you. I hope you had a very Merry Christmas. We will catch you next week. You have been crunched.